Chapter 31:23. Once one's mental state collapsed, one's cultivation would be crippled. However, Lin Sun hadn't expected that the dignified patriarch of the Taihao clan, Taihao Tong, would be unable to endure such a blow. With a flick of his finger, a wisp of sword energy flashed out and killed Taihao Tong on the spot. On the other hand, the divine rank order controlled by Taihao Tong fell into Lin Sun's hands, and he completely subdued it in a few breaths of time. Instantly, the scenes of the entire divine mountain that were enveloped by the divine rank order appeared in Lin Sun's mind. He saw countless people standing there in a daze like clay statues. He saw the clansmen of the Taihao clan fleeing in every corner of the divine mountain, and they were terrified like stray dogs. He saw many people charging madly out of the divine mountain. The entire Taihao clan was in chaos. Lin Sun didn't hesitate to take control of the divine mountain order and start slaughter. Those undying figures that belonged to the Taihao clan, no matter where they were all killed on the spot, and their souls dispersed. Those who were at the Emperor realm or above were crippled as well. The experts of the other Eternal God clan who'd come to congratulate the Taihao clan were annihilated by Lin Sun as well. The stench of blood swept through every single area of the divine mountain like tidewater. Scenes of death occurred incessantly, and it formed a horrifying scene that seemed like purgatory on earth. Just like in the past, Lin Sun didn't kill them all. Merely 10 minutes later, Lin Sun did the same thing. Just like how he'd refined Vast Sun Divine Mountain, he completely refined the divine mountain that the Taihao clan resided in. Of course, the wealth that the Taihao clan had accumulated over countless years had fallen into Lin Sun's hands as well. After that, Lin Sun didn't waste any time and took action once more. Earlier, he'd searched the soul of a great figure of the Taihao clan, and he'd found out that the Eternal God clan closest to the Taihao clan was the One clan. Moreover, there was a teleportation formation in the Taihao clan's territory that led to the endless territory controlled by the One clan. If he made the best use of his time, he could arrive there in half a day. Of course, this was also the time for Lin Sun to recover his strength. Otherwise, no matter how strong his cultivation was, he would definitely be unable to endure rushing all the way. This day was supposed to be a joyous day for the marriage alliance between the Taihao clan and the Ji clan, and it drew the attention of the entire world. But on this very day, the Taihao clan had been trampled upon, the divine rank order had been seized, and all the great figures of the sect had been annihilated. Soon after Lin Sun left, the news spread out and set off a great disturbance in the following time. As the news continued to spread, Lin Sun arrived at the endless territory controlled by the Eternal God One clan. One clan, as one of the 12 Eternal Gods, their heritage is extremely ancient. In terms of strength, they could be ranked in the top 3 of the 9th heaven. They are a veritable behemoth. The One clan was entrenched in the Big Dipper, sacred mountain, and possessed 7 stars of the god-level sequence. Its chief, Wen Changhe, was a man of great talent and bold vision. Yet now, just the One clan alone had 4 Eternal Realm experts, and all of them were existences that had surpassed the Law Realm. Patriarch, bad news. We just received news that the Eternal Godyong clan has been annihilated. On the Big Dipper, sacred mountain, outside the main hall of the Wen clan, an urgent voice sounded. Wen Changhe, who was studying Taoist scriptures in the main hall, stiffened and stood up with a terrifying look in his eyes. What did you say? The Yang clan has been annihilated? Do you have any specific news? Ding! An old man who came to deliver the message handed over a jade slip. When Changhe opened the jade slip and looked at it, his entire body froze and his expression flickered. The content of the jade slip was very simple. There were only a few lines of handwriting and a scene on the light screen. The content of the handwriting was that late at night the day before yesterday, news had spread that from today onwards, the Eternal Godyong clan would no longer exist in the world. This caused turmoil in the endless territory controlled by the Yang clan. When countless cultivators went to the vast Sun God Mountain, where the Yang clan was entrenched to inquire about the news, they found that the huge vast Sun God Mountain had disappeared from the earth. The scene on the light screen in the jade slip reflected the world where the vast sun god mountain used to be, but now it was empty. After a long time, when Chang'e calmed down and asked, "Did you find out who did this?" The old man shook his head. "Go and invite all the patriarchs and the elders of the clan. Be quick." When Chang'e ordered, the old man left in a hurry. When Chang'e's mind was still in turmoil. In a single night, the eternal Godyong clan had been annihilated. This made Wen Chang'e's hair stand on end. This was no different from a change in the heavens. One had to know that since ancient times, the 12 eternal god clans had stood tall in the world. Until now, no one had been able to shake their position. But now, the Yang clan had been annihilated. How could Wen Chang'e not be shocked? As the saying went, without lips, the teeth would feel cold. This bad news from a Yang clan also made Wen Chang'e feel that something was wrong. He realized the severity of the problem. When the patriarchs of the clan are gathered here, we must discuss a countermeasure and prepare in advance. Wen Chang'e murmured in his heart, "Patriarch, this is bad." Suddenly, another hurried and panicked shout sounded outside the main hall. Wen Chang'e's eyelids twitched, and an inexplicable anger surged in his heart. He shouted, "What's the matter?" Outside the main hall, an indifferent voice sounded, "Nothing. It's nothing more than that I came uninvited and wanted to settle some old grudges with your clan." Wen Chang'e's pupils suddenly shrank. Outside the main hall, a tall figure walked in, dressed in a white robe fluttering in the wind. He was so handsome that he seemed to be strolling leisurely in the courtyard. Lin Sun. Wen Chang'e's eyes widened as if he had been struck by lightning. Lin Sun said with a smile, "I've never met you, but you recognize me. You have a good memory. How could it be? How could you appear here?" Wen Chang'e's face changed. He couldn't believe all this for a moment. When I went to the Yang clan, Ji clan, and Taihao clan, they were also very surprised. They didn't expect that I would dare to come to the ninth heaven alone. But in the end, I'm still alive, but they are all dead. Lin Sun said casually. Lin Sun's words were like a bolt from the blue, giving Wen Chang'e goosebumps all over his body. He cried out involuntarily, "The destruction of the Yang clan has something to do with you." Lin Sun nodded. "Except for me, there should be no one else who will be so vengeful." Wen Chang'e was speechless for a while. He needed to calm down. Everything that had happened so suddenly had thrown him into disarray. However, Lin Sun didn't give him much time. He stepped forward and said, "Taoism peer, before you die, I kindly remind you that from today on, the one clan will also be removed from the ninth heaven." His voice was flat, but it was like a judgment from heaven. In this empty hall, Wen Chang'e's heart sank to the bottom all of a sudden. After a quarter of an hour, Wen Chang'e, the patriarch of the one clan of the eternal god clan, for existences in the law-breaking realm, and a group of immortals were slaughtered. What happened in the Yang clan and the Taihao clan was also played out in the Wen clan. When Lin Sun's figure walked out of the Big Dipper sacred mountain, the 7 stars of the Wen clan and the wealth accumulated over countless years all fell into Lin Sun's hands. From the beginning to the end, nothing unexpected happened. When Lin Sun left, even the Big Dipper sacred mountain was refined and taken away. And just half a day after the destruction of the Taihao clan, the news about the destruction of the Wen clan also began to spread in this boundless territory. All of this didn't end there. The ninth heaven was too big. Every eternal god clan was entrenched in a different boundless territory, and they were extremely far away from each other. This also made it take time for the news to spread. From a night Lin Sun left the Yang clan to the one clan of the eternal god clan, nearly 2 days had passed. It only took Lin Sun about a day to destroy the 2 great eternal god clans, the Taihao clan and the One clan. The only time he was delayed was when he went to the Ji clan. But it was obvious that Lin Sun's actions could be called godly speed. Otherwise, the Taihao clan and the One clan wouldn't have been so slow to notice when Lin Sun came knocking on their doors. But Lin Sun also knew that he was only one person. He could only go to one place after another to take revenge on the eternal gods. This also meant that no matter how fast he moved, he wouldn't be able to outrun the speed at which the news spread in the following days. Sooner or later, the other eternal gods would learn of the news and make preparations. But then again, Lin Sun was even more certain that even if they received the news in advance, the eternal gods, who had been high and mighty for countless years, would definitely not flee with their entire clansmen just after learning of the news. News was news, after all. The eternal gods might be able to accept it, but it was obviously impossible for them to decisively abandon their home that they had occupied for countless years and flee with all their clansmen after learning of the news. After all, the eternal gods were a colossus that had been looked up to by billions of people for countless years. How could they be scared off by a mere piece of news? According to Lin Sun's deduction, the eternal gods would at most make all sorts of preparations in advance. They wouldn't flee upon hearing the news. That wasn't how the eternal gods would act. And this undoubtedly gave Lin Sun a chance to take revenge one by one. The only drawback was that as more and more eternal gods learned of the destruction of the eternal gods, it was possible that the other eternal gods would flee in advance. So for Lin Sun, he had to seize every moment to act. Half a day after leaving the One clan's territory, Lin Sun's figure appeared in the territory of the Zhu clan of the eternal gods. As Lin Sun expected, the Zhu clan had already learned of the destruction of the Yang clan of the eternal gods before he arrived. They had already begun making preparations in advance. But unfortunately, their preparations were only to strengthen the defenses of their clan. They were still guarding their own homes. This meant that they couldn't stop Lin Sun's advance. In just a quarter of an hour, after the Yang clan, the Ji clan, the Taihao clan, and the One clan, the colossus that was the Zhu clan of the eternal gods also collapsed at Lin Sun's feet. Chapter 31:24. Nine Spirits Body Mountain, where the Tsang clan of the eternal gods resided. Yesterday, news came that the Yang clan was destroyed, and now there's news that the Ji clan has also been massacred by Lin Sun. The important figures of the Tsang clan gathered in the ancestral shrine. The atmosphere was oppressive. It can be confirmed that the Yang clan's annihilation is surely also Lin Sun's doing, and he's actually able to accomplish this with his own power. There's only one possibility. He possesses a trump card in his hands that can suppress a boundless realm's manifestation. An eternal realm old man said in a low voice. Moreover, even with the protection of the divine order, it can't stop this kid's attack. His words caused the hearts of everyone present to become heavy. They had all realized that a storm was about to sweep through the ninth heaven, and the one who set off this storm was Lin Sun, a legendary figure whose name had shaken the nine heavens in the past 100 years, and who had now become the Yuan sect's Yuan Qing pavilion master. Then what should we do? Someone asked in a low voice. Everyone knew that the disaster of the Yang and Ji clans was just the beginning. Perhaps Lin Sun had already taken action and was taking revenge on the other eternal gods. What should we do? In the past, who would take a little thing like Lin Sun seriously? But now, he's a threat to the survival of the eternal gods. How sad. Someone said angrily. The bad news from the Yang and Ji clans had shocked them all. From disbelief at the beginning, they were now deeply worried. Their mood could be said to have fluctuated greatly. This is called when the time comes, heaven and earth are united. An old man sighed. If it weren't for the calamity of the era that forced the 12 eternal gods and the existences above the fate realm to leave one after another, Lin Sun would never have had the chance to kill his way into the ninth heaven. Not to mention him, even the masters of the four ancestral halls can't shake our position. Everyone's emotions were in turmoil. The old senior continued. Besides that, Lin Sun defied the heavens and seized the critical factor to attain eternity by force, causing even the existences behind the calamity of an era to feel threatened. It's obvious that Lin Sun's path towards eternity is bound to be extraordinary, and what the Yang clan and Ji clan suffered has undoubtedly proved this. Finally, the old antique concluded. All of this means that in the current situation, Lin Sun already has the power to subvert the structure of the ninth heaven. We must not underestimate him in the slightest. Otherwise, our Tsang clan will probably follow in the footsteps of the Yang clan and Ji clan. Everyone was extremely shocked in their hearts, and their expressions became unprecedentedly heavy. "Ancestor, what do you think we should do?" someone asked. The old man raised his hand and made a stroke, and a huge map emerged. "Look, after Lin Sun destroyed Yang Clan, he immediately went to Ji Clan. If I'm right, his next target is probably Tai Hao Clan, which is adjacent to Ji Clan." Everyone nodded in agreement. The old antique thought for a moment, yet he shook his head and said, "No, we were almost 2 days too late when we received the news of Ji Clan and Yang Clan suffering calamity. Lin Sun has probably already annihilated Tai Hao Clan by now." The expressions of everyone changed. Speed is of paramount importance in war. Lin Sun is surely clearly aware that once news of this spreads, it's bound to be more and more disadvantageous to his next actions. So, he'll definitely make the best use of his time to take action. The old antique's gaze was deep as he pointed at the map that was reflected on the screen. "If I'm not wrong, then he'll definitely attack Wen Clan after he annihilates Tai Hao Clan." Someone's expression instantly changed, and he said, "If Wen Clan is annihilated as well, then he only has to annihilate Ju Clan, and then our Song Clan will be his next target." The old antique nodded. "So, the situation has become extremely urgent, and we must take action right now. Ancestor, you can decide what to do next." Everyone spoke successively. The old antique nodded and said, "In my opinion, it's best for us to leave with all our clansmen and avoid the brunt of his attacks. So long as we survive, we'll be able to figure out everything. At that time, no matter if we return or make another decision, we'll be in an invincible position. Should we flee?" The expressions of everyone changed indeterminately, and they struggled endlessly in their hearts. Lin Sun was just a single person, yet he made the entire Song Clan retreat without a fight just because of some rumors. If news of this were to spread, the prestige that the Song Clan had accumulated for countless years was bound to suffer a crushing defeat, and they would completely become the laughingstock of the world. Ancestor, these are rumors after all. No one knows if the annihilation of Yang Clan and Ji Clan was done by Lin Sun alone or for some other reason. If we leave just like this, wouldn't it seem to? Someone couldn't help but speak. Yes, the others chimed in successively, and they were unwilling to leave just like this. The old antique couldn't help but frown when he saw this. Being alive is more important than anything else. If we die, then everything will be finished. Not to mention that those rumors might have some flaws. But the calamity that Yang Clan and Ji Clan suffered is a fact that has already occurred. Everyone couldn't help but look at the patriarch when they saw this. Let's do as the ancestor said. The patriarch of the Song Clan was silent for a moment before he gritted his teeth and made a decision. All right, let's leave now. The old antique instantly felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders, and he said in a relaxed manner, "It's easy to leave. We just have to put away the 9 spirits God Mountain and the power of order." As he spoke, he stood up and walked out of the ancestral shrine. "Everyone, let's begin." Everyone stood up one after another. But right when the old antique had just walked to the entrance of the ancestral shrine, an indifferent voice had already sounded, "Everyone, it's a step too late to escape now." Immediately after that, a tall figure appeared in the field of vision of all the big shots of the Song Clan. He was alone and had a leisurely bearing, but the appearance of this person struck them as if they were struck by lightning, and they felt as if the sky was about to collapse. "We're a step too late, after all." The old antique couldn't help but let out a long sigh, and his voice was filled with indescribable disappointment and unwillingness. They'd already intended to avoid the sharp edge, but this sharp edge had already arrived at the door. Nothing unexpected happened next. Not long after Lin Sun's arrival, the Song Clan of the Eternal Gods was annihilated and removed from the world. Since leaving the Ji Clan until now, Lin Sun had successively destroyed the 4 great Eternal Gods, the Tai Hao Clan, the Wen Clan, the Ju Clan, and the Song Clan. And it had only been 2 days since then. But his experience in the Song Clan made Lin Sun realize that as the news spread, the Eternal Gods had become more vigilant. In fact, that Song clan had even planned to evacuate. If such a thing happened, wiping out the eternal gods would be no different than finding a needle in a haystack. After all, the ninth heaven was far too vast. Given the abilities of the eternal gods, once they went into hiding, it would definitely take a lot of time and effort to ferret them out. And Lin Sun didn't have that much time to waste. However, Lin Sun also knew that while the other eternal gods might experience the same situation as the Song clan, it was absolutely impossible for them to all choose to evacuate. Just as Lin Sun had expected when he arrived at his next target, the Minamoto clan of the eternal gods, the Minamoto clan had obviously received a lot of news, but they didn't choose to evacuate. Instead, they were on guard. In other words, the Minamoto clan was prepared to evacuate at the first sign of trouble. Unfortunately, Lin Sun didn't give them any chance to evacuate. When he appeared, he first snuck into the Minamoto clan without leaving a trace, then seized the opportunity to suppress an Eternal Realm expert who controlled divine level sequence power in one fell swoop. The Minamoto clan's path of retreat was cut off, and then the Minamoto clan was annihilated. Lin Sun didn't waste any time. He headed straight for the Panwu clan. However, this time, Lin Sun didn't find anything. When he arrived at the Panwu clan's territory, it was already empty. Lin Sun had long since expected this, so he wasn't surprised. In the following days, he went to the Yi clan, Wu clan, Xingtian clan, and Zish clan. Among them, the Yi clan and Xingtian clan retreated a step ahead of the Panwu clan. The Wu clan and Zish clan, on the other hand, chose to resist stubbornly. The result was self-evident. These two eternal god clans were annihilated by Lin Sun one after another. At this point, in less than 6 days, Lin Sun set off from the Ji clan and went to the Taihao clan, Wen clan, Ju clan, Song clan, Minamoto clan, and the other eternal god clans. He traveled through the major territories, setting off one bloody storm after another. Apart from the Panwu clan, the Yi clan, and the Xingtian clan, the other eternal god clans that had existed for countless years were all annihilated in the dust of history. It was as if the behemoths that had lived in the ninth heaven for countless years fell one after another, setting off monstrous waves in the major territories of the world. After Lin Sun returned to the Ji clan, the entire ninth heaven was completely shocked. Hundreds of millions of creatures were shocked by the various news that came one after another. What? Even its Song clan was annihilated? This was yesterday's news, and just now another news came. The Minamoto clan was also annihilated. How could this be? God, what the hell is happening in the ninth heaven? While people were still shocked by the destruction of an eternal god clan, the news of the annihilation of other eternal god clans spread, causing everyone to be dumbfounded. 12 eternal god clans were destroyed one after another in just a few days. For the people of the ninth heaven, this was no different from a great change. There were too many surprises, shock, and disbelief. No words could describe that kind of feeling. And when they thought that all of this was done by a single person, it made their scalp tingle. Lin Sun, he actually overturned the sky of the ninth heaven by himself. Since ancient times, when has such a thing ever happened? This Lin Sun, how can he be so powerful? He suppressed all the eternal god clans in the ninth heaven by himself. Looking at the heavens, looking at the past and present, has there ever been such a person? I'm afraid that Lin Sun will have the final say in the 9 heavens of the eternal world in the future. All kinds of uproars resounded in every territory of the ninth heaven. And as the news continued to spread, such a sensation continued to ferment and play out, constantly setting off more and more turbulent waves. More chapters were added. Recently, many children said that the plot was not exciting enough, that it was purely crushing all the way, and that it lacked passion and so on. Goldfish could only say that it was now the ending stage of the plot, and it was impossible to keep digging holes and showing off like before. Of course, before the end of the book, there was still a big climax. What Goldfish wanted to say was that the early part of the book was like a foreshadowing, the middle part was the climax, and the last part was the end and the curtain. This was what a complete book should be like. If one only pursued excitement and passion, It would be very simple. They just needed to keep opening new maps and showing off. But that was no different from wasting words. When it was time to end the book, it was time to write the plot before the curtain fell. Of course, this did not mean that the following plot was not exciting enough. On the contrary, the real big shots like Chen Linkong, Chen Shi, the Mastermind, Golden Cicada, and the Master of the Hardcore would all appear one by one, while Lin Sun would fight on the ultimate path of Tao. Everyone was looking forward to it. The above wordy words were free. Chapter 3125, Divine Mountain of Beginning, Bamboo Pine Peak. Shi and Ji Shanhai heaved a sigh of relief when they saw Lin Sun return safely. Ji Shanhai couldn't help but ask, "Brother Lin, did your trip go smoothly?" Lin Sun shook his head. There were some accidents. Shi's heart tightened, and he also asked, "What happened?" Lin Sun smiled. "Just a small matter." As he spoke, he told them that the Xingtian clan, the Yi clan, and the Panwu clan had retreated ahead of time. Shi and Ji Shanhai were stunned. Only now did they understand that the accidents Lin Sun mentioned were just that they didn't exterminate the 3 eternal gods. So, the other eternal gods have already... Ji Shanhai was shocked. Her pink lips slightly parted, and her beautiful eyes widened. "That's right, they've already been erased from the world." Lin Sun nodded. Shi and Ji Shanhai were dumbfounded, and they couldn't help but lose their composure. In less than 7 days, apart from the 3 eternal gods who escaped in advance, the other eternal gods had already met with disaster. Their hearts trembled, and their minds went blank as they stared at Lin Sun. Although they already knew that Lin Sun had already destroyed the Yang clan and cleansed the Ji clan, they still felt an unprecedented shock when they heard this news. This is tantamount to sweeping away all the eternal god clans of the 9th heaven with his own strength. After a while, Ji Shanhai asked excitedly, "Brother Lin, quickly tell us what happened." In the past, she was like an orchid in an empty valley, beautiful and aloof. But now, she was like a young girl full of admiration, no longer concealing her inner emotions. She was still calm, but his eyes were also rippling when he looked at Lin Sun. How could Lin Sun refuse? He smiled and told them about his actions one by one. The 2 sisters were overwhelmed with emotions as they listened. That day, the entire Ji clan learned of Lin Sun's glorious achievements. They were all shocked, not knowing whether to be happy or lucky. It was too contradictory. If Lin Sun hadn't shown mercy, the Ji clan wouldn't have survived at all. But they couldn't deny that Lin Sun had also killed many of their clansmen. That was why the Ji clansmen were so conflicted. As for Ji Wang too, the grudge and resistance he had towards Lin Sun completely vanished after learning of these matters. All that was left was relief. Of the 12 eternal gods, 3 had fled like stray dogs, and the other 8 had been uprooted. In comparison, the Ji family had suffered a bloody purge, but at least they had survived. How could Ji want to not be satisfied with this? It was also on the same day that the Ji family learned that Lin Sun will leave the 9th heaven in 3 days, and when he leaves, he will take all the Ji clansmen with him. In the outside world, news of the destruction of the eternal gods was still fermenting and spreading. But to the hundreds of millions of people in the world, they all knew that the structure of the world that had been formed since ancient times and controlled by the 12 eternal gods had been completely broken by Lin Sun. The 9th heaven has completely changed. I never thought that in my lifetime I would be able to see the eternal gods who ruled over the world and enslaved all living beings fall one by one. Father, Mother, if you knew this in the afterlife, you would be very happy, right? Some people cried and shouted excitedly. The forces and cultivators who had been enslaved and persecuted were now in the same mood. They were excited, joyful, and unable to control themselves. Turning things around with a single move meant that they didn't have to suffer any more oppression, and they didn't have to drag out an ignoble existence. To them, this was undoubtedly an extremely great fortune. Quick, search for the remnants of the Taihao clan. When a tree falls, the monkeys scatter. This time, it's time for us to take revenge. In the major territories of the 9th heaven, countless forces began to take action. They were filled with murderous intent, searching for and killing the remnants of the eternal gods that had long been destroyed. The 24 immortal clans that were also distributed in the ninth heaven had also been mobilized. In the past, the eternal god clans had each occupied an endless territory and controlled countless territories. But now, as the eternal god clans fell one by one, these territories naturally became food for the others. Slaughter, blood, turbulence. Like smoke, it filled the sky of the ninth heaven. Just as Lin Sun had expected, as long as he destroyed the eternal gods, he wouldn't need to do anything himself. The remnants of the eternal gods would be surrounded and annihilated by the people of the world. It could be said that Lin Sun had single-handedly ended an era where the 12 eternal gods ruled the world. This wasn't just limited to the ninth heaven. As the news spread, as time passed, the entire structure of the 9 heavens of the eternal world would be affected, and profound changes would occur. While the outside world was in turmoil, Lin Sun was taking inventory of the spoils of war. Countless precious treasures, medicinal pills, divine materials, books, cultivation techniques, and Tao artifacts that were vast like the ocean. The dense and dazzling collection of treasures could be piled up into numerous mountains. This was the accumulation of 8 eternal gods over countless years. When they were gathered together, the wealth was absolutely unparalleled and unparalleled. Just the complete divine order alone had 8 divine orders. Just the various treasures that could satisfy the cultivation of eternal realm experts were enough for Lin Sun to have an inexhaustible supply before he reached the boundless realm. Just taking inventory and sorting out these treasures took Lin Sun a full half a day. In the end, Lin Sun couldn't help but feel a little dazed. He was completely shocked by the wealth of these eternal gods. It was no wonder that these eternal gods could stand tall in the ninth heaven until now, and that all living beings in the world could only revere and look up to them. Just from this unimaginably huge amount of wealth, one could see some clues. Not to mention that along the way, Lin Sun had also captured more than 20 Eternal Realm experts, and now they were all suppressed in the Abyssal Sword Cauldron. In the future, as long as he used the power of the 5 sequences of the Ultimate Ruin, he would be able to refine all these captives. In the end, Lin Sun kept all the eternal treasures that were suitable for his cultivation and planned to distribute the rest of the wealth to his friends and relatives in the future. When I have time in the future, I'll come to the ninth heaven again. Lin Sun thought to himself. He wouldn't forget the 3 eternal gods who had escaped in advance, the Yi clan, the Panwu clan, and the Xingtian clan. But now, he doesn't have the time to search for the whereabouts of these 3 eternal gods one by one. It's no different from looking for a needle in a haystack. On the contrary, as the situation calms down in the future, these 3 eternal gods will sooner or later reveal some clues. At that time, it will be relatively easier to deal with them. On the same day, Lin Sun found Ji Wangtu, Shi, and Ji Shanhai and told them about his decision to leave. There is a path to the 8th heaven on the territory of my Ji clan. Although this path has been sealed in the early years, it can be opened at any time. Ji Wangtu said. She nodded and said, "The situation in the 9th heaven is turbulent and chaotic. It's better to leave early. By the way, I have one more thing to ask, Senior." Lin Sun suddenly thought of something and looked at Ji Wangtu. "What's the matter?" Ji Wangtu was puzzled. "In the past, my master, the master of the heart core, came to the 9th heaven. I want to know what he experienced in the 9th heaven." Lin Sun revealed a deep mystery in his heart. A strange expression suddenly appeared on Ji Wangtu's face, as if he was hesitating whether to tell Lin Sun or not. "Senior, please speak your mind," Lin Sun said softly. Ji Wangtu took a deep breath and said, "Speaking of which, this is also a matter of the past. Not long after the master of the heart core arrived in the 9th heaven, he invited 12 old eternal gods to the Sky Seal Mountain, saying that he had important matters to discuss. After the 12 eternal god clans discussed, they decided to each send out a boundless realm existence. But after arriving at the Sky Seal Mountain, a conflict arose." "Conflict?" Lin Sun's eyes narrowed. "Yes, It is said that the master of the heart core hoped that the 12 eternal gods would join forces to fight against the existence behind the calamity of the era. Ji Wangtu's expression was complicated. How could the 12 eternal gods agree? In the past, countless civilizations have been destroyed, but they were no match for the existence behind the curtain. After a pause, he continued. After being rejected, the master of the heart core declared that sooner or later, when the immortal supreme path appears, it will shatter everyone's understanding of the world, and everything in the ninth heaven will be completely subverted. At this point, he couldn't help but look at Lin Sun with a strange light in his eyes. Lin Sun had embarked on the immortal supreme path, and now he had defeated the 12 eternal gods all by himself, overturning the situation in the ninth heaven in one fell swoop. This undoubtedly fulfilled the master of the heart core's words. Could it be that a conflict broke out just because of such a sentence? Lin Sun frowned. Ji Wangtu shook his head. That's not the case. At the time, a boundless realm existence from the Zen sect arrived and brought a stone statue. The primordial stone statue. Lin Sun's pupil shrank. That's right. Ji Wangtu was a little surprised, as if he hadn't expected Lin Sun to know about it. He then continued. It was this stone statue that caused the 12 eternal gods to completely break off relations with the master of the heart core. A great war broke out on the Sky Seal Mountain. In the end, the master of the heart core met with disaster. At this point, Ji Wangtu hurriedly added, but later, I found out that the master of the heart core was only destroyed with the power of the Dharma image. According to the deduction of the 12 eternal gods, the original body of the master of the heart core has probably already gone to the ruins of many wonders of Tao and will never return. So, they spread the news that the master of the heart core met with disaster in the ninth heaven. Hearing this, Lin Sun completely understood. No wonder the news he heard before always said that master had met with disaster in the ninth heaven, and no one knew whether he was dead or alive. It turned out that what was destroyed back then was only a Dharma image of master's will. The root of the disaster that triggered the war was the primordial stone statue brought by the boundless realm existence from the Zen sect. There is no doubt that this was related to the mastermind behind the calamity of the era. Chapter 31:26. After a moment of silence, Lin Sun asked, Senior, what is the relationship between the 12 eternal gods and the mastermind behind the calamity? Ji Wangtu let out a long sigh and said, You may not believe it, but according to what I know, in the eyes of that existence, the eternal gods of the ninth heaven are not even comparable to their dogs. This sentence was self-deprecating, bitter, and sorrowful. Not even comparable to their dogs. The 10 immortal giants of the eighth heaven were at least dogs of the eternal gods. But they, the eternal gods, were clearly not qualified to serve as dogs for the mastermind behind the scenes. This made Lin Sun extremely surprised and even more incredulous. If that's the case, why do these eternal gods always listen to orders? Who dares to disobey the will of that existence? Ji Wangtu took a deep breath and said, I won't hide it from you. Half a year ago, the Zen sect also spread the news, telling the eternal gods of the ninth heaven that as long as they kill you, those eternal realm monsters will be spared from the great silence retribution. Lin Sun's heart shook. Indeed, the mastermind behind the calamity might not be able to completely control the great silence retribution, but he could use it or interfere with it. No wonder they were so desperate back then. A mocking smile appeared on Lin Sun's lips. If that's the case, can I understand that in the entire eternal world, the only one qualified to be the dog of the mastermind is the Zen sect? The Zen sect controlled the mysterious primordial stone statue. Whether it was dealing with the master of the heart in the ninth heaven or dealing with Lin Sun now, it was all led by the Zen sect. All of this proved that the Zen sect and the mastermind had an unusual relationship. This, I'm not sure. Ji Wangtu shook his head. Lin Sun didn't ask any more questions. These things involved the mastermind, and even an existence like Chun Linkong couldn't see through the true face of the mastermind, let alone others. On the same day, Lin Sun left the ninth heaven with Ji Wang-tu and the other Ji clansmen. The seventh heaven, the ancestral court of the Yuan sect. The news of Lin Sun's return spread throughout the entire Yuan sect. Xian Feiling, Duge Yong, Fang Daoping, and other VIPs immediately went to welcome them. Zhao Jingxian, Old Toad, Ahu Alu, and the others also stopped what they were doing and went over. On the same day, what happened in the ninth heaven caused a sensation in the entire Yuan sect, causing countless uproars and shocked voices. Lin Sun had long been accustomed to it. That night, a grand banquet began in the central Holy Ji Palace. Lin Sun introduced Ji Shanhai, and the others to everyone. Hearing this, Xian Feiling couldn't help but tease him. I was wondering why you went to the ninth heaven. It turned out to be a hero saving a beauty. Many people laughed along with him. On the other hand, she maintained a calm expression and did not say anything. Ji Shanhai blinked her beautiful eyes and said with a sweet smile, "Which woman in this world can resist an extraordinary man like Pavilion Master Lin? Unfortunately, he's already married and has children. Otherwise, I'd really like to chase after him." Zhao Jingxian had been sizing up Shi and Ji Shanhai. When she heard Ji Shanhai say that, she heaved a sigh of relief and stopped worrying. Lin Sun didn't participate in this topic from beginning to end. He tactfully stayed out of it. Otherwise, he was bound to get into trouble. The banquet didn't end until late at night. After the banquet, Lin Sun went straight back to his cave residence. Previously, he had already handed over some of the spoils of war he obtained from the various eternal gods to Xian Feiling, Duge Yong, Fang Daoping, and the others to handle. He believed that with the wisdom of these old people, they would be able to make full use of these spoils of war. This was a great thing for everyone living in the Yuan realm today. "Husband, I'm a little worried about Fan Er." In the cave residence, Zhao Jingxuan's graceful and delicate body nestled in Lin Sun's arms. She said softly, "I told him to send back some news every month to report that he's safe. But now, Fan Er hasn't sent back any news for 2 months." Lin Sun gently stroked Zhao Jingxuan's delicate and beautiful face and said, "When Fan Er left, didn't he bring all kinds of secret treasures with him? If anything really happened to him, you would definitely be the first to sense it." Zhao Jingxian hummed and said, "That's true," but she still wanted to say something, but Lin Sun lowered his head and kissed her plump pink lips. She immediately lost all her thoughts. The night passed uneventfully. The next morning, Lin Sun was refreshed, and he personally cooked a table of delicious dishes. Xia Ji, who walked out of the Ark of Eternity in the early morning, felt that something was wrong. She couldn't help but ask Sister Jingxian, "What did you and Lin Sun do last night? Why did you insist that I stay on the Ark of Eternity?" Zhao Jingxuan's pretty face blushed, and her slender snow-white neck turned pink. She pretended to be calm and said vaguely, "Nothing, I just talked to him about some things." Xia Ji asked curiously, "What things?" Zhao Jingxian couldn't help but glance at Lin Sun, as if to say something. Seeing Zhao Jingxuan's embarrassment, Lin Sun couldn't help but laugh. "Xia Ji, your sister Jingxian hasn't seen me for a long time. It's inevitable that we have a lot to talk about. As for what we talked about, it doesn't matter at all." Xia Ji's beautiful eyes stared at Lin Sun and said, "Lin Sun, you're lying." "Lin Sun? ? Xia Ji said, "Last night, my divine sense caught some different sounds." Sister Jingxian seemed very uncomfortable. "Did you bully her?" Zhao Jingxian couldn't sit still. Her beautiful face was burning like fire. She stood up and walked out of the cave abode. "You guys eat first. I suddenly remembered that I have something to do today." Saying that, she left the cave abode as if she was fleeing. Lin Sun's lips couldn't help but twitch. Last night, Xia Ji secretly peeped. Even though he had tempered his skin to the eternal realm, he couldn't help but feel a burst of heat at this moment. He thought to himself, "I must avoid such a thing in the future. What's wrong?" Xia Ji was still very puzzled. "Did you really bully Sister Jingxian?" Lin Sun. Time passed. It had been a month since Lin Sun returned from the ninth heaven. Over the past month, News of Lin Sun single-handedly annihilating a group of eternal gods swept through the various heavens like a violent hurricane. For a time, the whole world was in an uproar, and countless living beings were shocked. One person is like the sky, above the eternal realm. Pavilion Master Lin, he has created an unprecedented legend. Even the high and mighty eternal gods were trampled under Pavilion Master Lin's feet. Who in the world can compare to him? It's incredible, it's incredible. Similar voices rang out in all the major heavens. And Lin Sun's prestige also reached an unprecedented level with the spread of this news, like the sun shining alone above the 9 heavens. Master is already so powerful. In a bustling city in the 6th heaven, Su Bai was sitting in a restaurant drinking wine. Thinking of the recent sensational news, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. There was joy and amazement, but there was also a heavy pressure. He had always been conceited and regarded his master as his goal. But now he realized that even if he tried his best to catch up, he couldn't shorten the distance between him and his master. If master can do it, then I can definitely do it in the future. After drinking a pot of wine, Su Bai took a deep breath, his mind becoming firm and calm. Su Bai. Suddenly, a woman came to Su Bai's table and sat down unceremoniously. The woman's figure was thin, and her black hair was coiled into a bun, revealing a cold and beautiful face. What was particularly eye-catching was the mysterious flame mark between her eyebrows. Su Bai narrowed his eyes slightly and said, "Yes, come with me." The woman's voice was very calm, but there was no emotional fluctuation. Her eyes stared at Su Bai like sharp blades, and there was a sense of scrutiny and command in her eyes. "What's the matter?" he asked. The woman said, "Don't worry, you won't die before your master appears." Su Bai's heart trembled, and his expression changed slightly. "What do you mean?" The woman looked calm and said, "You're too weak and not qualified to know." Su Bai took a deep breath and said, "Then can you tell me who you are?" The woman thought for a while and suddenly showed a smile, but that smile had a heart-palpitating taste. "Since you want to know, then remember it well. My name is Jiangju, and I come from the era of the gods." Her voice was still echoing when Su Bai's eyes went black, and he suddenly lost all consciousness. Also in the 6th heaven, above a desert, Lin Fan looked solemnly at a person not far away. This was a young man in a black robe. He had an elegant demeanor, and his face was full of a spring breeze smile, which made it easy for people to have a good impression of him. However, in Lin Fan's eyes, this young man exuded an aura that made him feel a fatal threat. At this moment, the black-robed young man said with a smile, "Young man, don't struggle. In this world, the secret treasures and trump cards on your body can no longer help you. Try it if you don't believe me." Lin Fan frowned. "Who are you?" The black-robed young man said casually, "My name is Gao Yongli, and I come for the era of the gods. If your father sees me, he will definitely know who I am." Lin Fan's eyes were cold. "Are you my father's enemy?" The black-robed young man who called himself Gao Yongli chuckled. "Little fellow, you're quite smart. However, you don't have to worry. We've only come to discuss a matter with your father. If he agrees, then everyone will be happy. If he doesn't, then I'm afraid something bad will happen." Lin Fan looked around and said, "You're using my life to threaten my father. It seems that you don't have the guts to fight my father head-on." His voice was full of sarcasm. The black-robed young man said disapprovingly, "Now, your father's prestige is everywhere in the eternal true world. Even those eternal gods are no match for him. Although we don't care about this, we still need to make some preparations, don't you think?" He looked at Lin Fan with a smile, as if he was chatting with an old friend. However, all of this made Lin Fan's heart sink to the bottom, and he completely realized that the situation was not good. Chapter 31:27 Yuan's Sect. In the cave dwelling, Lin Sun quietly opened his eyes for meditation. He had broken through. During this period of time, he had been concentrating on cultivation, and after refining 9 divine pills of tribulation, he had finally reached the great perfection of the realm of justice. The divine pill of tribulation was a treasure Lin Sun had obtained from the Taihao clan of the Eternal God clan. Refining, it was like entering a world of calamity. It could allow one's cultivation to undergo a deeper level of tempering and accumulation, and there was no need to worry about qi deviation. The value of such a divine pill was comparable to that of an eternal Tao soldier, and it could play an incredible role in breaking through to the realm of justice. During this period of time, Lin Sun had refined a total of 9 divine pills of tribulation in one go to raise his cultivation to the great perfection of the realm of justice. One could imagine how strong his cultivation was. The next step is the creation realm. Lin Sun's eyes were clear. In the creation realm, as long as one refined more rule power, one's cultivation would be constantly improved. And all this was not a problem for Lin Sun at all, because what he lacked the least right now was all kinds of divine orders. Of course, there was a huge threshold between the realm of justice and the creation realm. It was not easy to break through. More importantly, in the period of time before the calamity of the era, almost all existences above the creation realm would be seriously threatened by the great silence, fateless disaster. On the contrary, the possibility of suffering the disaster was much smaller for those in the transgression realm. This is also why in the ninth heaven, the 12 eternal gods are all existences that have transcended the boundaries of the rules, and almost none of the old guys above the creation realm can be seen. The reason was that the threat from the great silence fateless disaster was too serious. In this regard, Lin Sun had to be vigilant. When he was proving his Tao, he was targeted by the mastermind behind the calamity of the era. Until now, although he had not encountered the great silence fateless disaster, no one could guarantee when it would come. But what was certain was that if he had proved his Tao in the eternal world and reached the creation realm, the probability of being killed by this disaster would undoubtedly be much higher. Lin Sun suddenly remembered something. Back then, Chun Linkong had said that the Eternal Ark contained a star map that led to the Eternal Gate, and that the Eternal Gate contained a great fortune related to the Eternal Realm. Now that he had reached the perfect perfection realm of justice, he had the ability to head to the door of eternity. However, Lin Sun wouldn't forget that a long time ago, the Skirich Master had also gone to search for the Gate of Eternity. However, it was also at that time that a mysterious Tao bell suffused with primal chaos chi had emerged from the Gate of Eternity and heavily injured the Skirich Master in one fell swoop. Lin Sun would never forget that when the Eternal Knight, Divine Emperor, went to the Divine City of Fortune, he encountered a Tao bell in the great silence and lifeless tribulation. That law bell also had a very special name, the Beginning. This made Lin Sun suspect that the law bell in the Eternal Gate was very likely to be the Taichu law bell that appeared in the great silence, lifeless tribulation that the Eternal Knight, Divine Emperor, encountered. Furthermore, the meaning behind the word absolute beginning was far too unusual. Lin Sun even suspected that the name Primordium was the name of the mastermind behind the calamity of an era. All of these made Lin Sun hesitate. Should he make a trip to the Gate of Eternity? Perhaps he could ask Xie Ji. After all, the Ark of Eternity had accompanied the Eternal Knight, Divine Emperor, for many years. Even if Xie Ji hadn't inherited the Eternal Knight, Divine Emperor's memories and wisdom, she was now equivalent to the Ark of Eternity. Master, just as Lin Sun was pondering, a voice filled with anxiety suddenly sounded. Husband. Immediately after, Zhao Jingxian rushed into the cave residence with a pale face and a look of panic on her face. She said in a trembling voice, Husband, Fan'er has used all his life-saving trump cards. Something must have happened. Lin Sun's heart shook. He hurriedly hugged the panicking Zhao Jingxian and said gently, Don't be nervous. Tell me what exactly happened. There was a calming power in his voice. Zhao Jingxian calmed down a lot. However, her pretty face was still filled with worry. She said, I was cultivating just now, but the secret talismans on me shattered one by one. As she spoke, she flipped her palm and many shattered secret talismans appeared. There were 7 or 8 types of them. When these secret talismans shattered, it meant that Lin Fan was in danger and had used his life-saving trump cards. This was also the reason why Zhao Jingxian felt panic and uneasiness. Seeing this, Lin Sun's eyebrows also showed a touch of coldness, and his black eyes were cold and terrible. He instantly judged that since Lin Fan was forced to use so many life-saving trump cards, the opponent he was facing could not be an opponent under the Eternal Realm. But who on earth did it? In today's world, who dared to be his enemy? Husband, think of a way. If something happens to Fana, Zhao Jingshuan's beautiful face was gloomy, and she was in a state of panic. Lin Sun took a deep breath, patted her on the shoulder, and said, "It's okay. As long as I'm here, nothing will happen to Fanner." His voice was calm, but it was extremely firm. Back then, Tang Jiang, a little girl who had never cultivated, was saved by the power of the Nirvana order. She was only left with a drop of blood. Now, even if his son Lin Fan was in danger, as long as there was a trace of life left, Lin Sun would try his best to save him. Of course, this was the worst-case scenario. The top priority was to find out the situation as soon as possible. Thinking of this, Lin Sun's heart moved, and he said, "Jing Xian, when Fanner left, did he carry any treasure that could help us find his trace?" Zhao Jingshuan's eyes lit up. Yes. At that time, Senior Xian Failing gave a jade pendant to Fanner. According to Senior Xian Failing, this jade pendant was called Traceless Spirit. No matter where Fanner went, there would be a trace of aura belonging to this jade pendant on the road he walked. This also means that we can find him now as long as we follow this trace of aura. With that, she pulled Lin Sun's sleeve and walked out of the cave residence. "Husband, let's go to find Senior Xian Failing." Lin Sun patted her on the shoulder. "Jing Xian, your mind is in a mess. You'd better stay and have a good rest. When you wake up, I will bring Fanner to see you." While his words were still echoing, Zhao Jingxian had fallen asleep, and her delicate body was lying in Lin Sun's arms. He put Zhao Jingxian on the bed, took a deep breath, and suppressed his killing intent. When he was about to leave, he saw Xia suddenly coming out of the boat of eternity. "I'll go with you." "You heard all that?" Lin Sun was stunned. Xia Ji nodded and said in a clear voice, "With my current strength, it should not be a big problem to kill an opponent who exceeds the regular rules." Lin Sun looked up and down at Xia Ji and found that her aura was obviously different from before, becoming more obscure and mysterious. Okay, Lin Sun didn't want to delay any longer, so he went to find Xian Failing with Xia Ji. But when he knew Lin Sun's purpose, Xian Failing also realized the seriousness of the problem. He immediately handed a jade slip to Lin Sun and said, "This is the secret method to capture the aura of Traceless Spirit. Take it, and I will help you hide this matter. I won't let others know. You can rest assured to find Lin Fan." "Thank you, Senior." Lin Sun took the jade slip and turned away. On the same day, he and Xia Ji quietly left Yuan's sect. The sixth heaven, a barren island floated in the middle of a boundless blue sea. "Brother Ji, are you sure Lin Sun will come?" Gao Yongli, the black-robed man, asked lazily while drinking. He reclined on a rock in a leisurely and unruly manner. Yes, the one who spoke was a dignified man in snow-white clothes. He put his hands behind his back, and his handsome face looked as if it had been chiseled by a knife. His deep eyes looked around, and there were visions of the starry sky in the depths of his pupils. He exuded an oppressive aura. Ji Guasian. He came from Ji clan, the primordial god clan of the gods era. Alas, if it weren't for my shackles, I would like to stay in this eternal true world. This place is better than the prison of the order of creation. Gao Yongli sighed softly. Ji Guasian said indifferently, "Even here, we can't escape the killing of the Great Silence fatal disaster. What's more, in less than 900 years, when the calamity of the era arrives, this world will be destroyed. If we're lucky, this era's civilization can survive in the ruins of creation. If we're unlucky, everything will be over." Gao Yongli was startled, then said with a smile, If that's the case for us, besides being like a prison, this ruins of creation is really a good place. Ji Guasian didn't comment. At this time, Jiangju, who had been silent all this time, suddenly looked into the distance with her sharp eyes. Her beautiful face that was as cold as ice still didn't have a trace of emotion. "He's here," Jiangju said. Gao Yangli turned over and stood up from the rock, then said with a smile, "I really want to see how this little guy, who was only at the heavenly longevity realm when he escaped from the divine city of creation, became eternal in less than 100 years. How did he defeat all the eternal gods in the ninth heaven with his own strength? This can be said to be an unprecedented miracle in the era of the gods." As he spoke, he also looked into the distance. "Be careful, don't fight if you can," Ji Guasian said softly. He put his hands behind his back, and his white clothes fluttered. He also looked into the distance. In the distance, a tall figure moved through the void and appeared in front of this island in just a few blinks of an eye. It was Lin Sun. "Did you capture my child?" Lin Sun's black eyes were cold, and the killing intent accumulated in his heart was almost out of control. At a glance, he could see that the breath of these two men and one woman was not ordinary. Although they tried to suppress it, there must be the existence of the eternal path. "Taoism Peer Lin, please calm down," Gao Yangli said with a smile. "I can assure you that whether it is your disciple Su Bai or your son Lin Fan, they're all unscathed. The reason why we're doing this is because we want to see fellow Taoist Lin and discuss something with him. Updates are sent. My monthly vote ranking has fallen to 20. If you have a monthly vote in your hands, please support me. Goldfish thanks in advance." Chapter 31:28. Subai was also held hostage. This news shocked Lin Sun, but he soon calmed down. He had heard that both his son Lin Fan and his disciple Su Bai were not in danger yet. That was enough. "Who are you?" Lin Sun did not ask what they wanted to discuss, but asked about their origin. Gao Yangli, the black-robed young man, said his name with a smile. "Back then, outside the divine city of fortune, I sent my will to see you once, but I didn't expect that in less than 100 years, you have made such great achievements on the eternal path. It's really amazing." After a pause, he pointed to the man in snow-white clothes and the woman who was as cold as ice. "He is Ji Guasian, and she is Jiangju. Like me, they are both from the era of the gods." "I see." Lin Sun frowned slightly. Of course, he knew the era of the gods. Among the hundreds of civilizations in the divine ruins of fortune, the era of the gods was worthy of being the first overlord. And in the era of the gods, there were three major clans, namely the High Sun clan, the Ji clan, and the Jiang clan. Undoubtedly, Gao Yangli and the other two came from these three clans. Isn't it said that the divine ruins of fortune is like a cage, and the cultivators of the civilizations in the era can't rush out? Lin Sun asked. "That was then, and this is now." Gao Yangli, the black-robed young man, smiled and said, "If you really want to know, I'll talk to you about it after we discuss the matter." "Tell me, what do you want?" Lin Sun said. "Hand over the mystery of controlling the divine city of fortune, and we can exchange for your son." Jiangju, who looked cold, said calmly, "Hand over the eternal coffin, and we can exchange for your disciple." Lin Sun's eyes narrowed slightly, and he said, "So you came for this? I want to see them first before making a decision." "Okay." Ji Guasian, who was dressed in snow-white clothes, waved his sleeve, and a light curtain emerged. In the light curtain, the figures of Lin Fan and Su Bai were reflected. Both were in a state of coma, unconscious, but it seemed that they were not injured. Lin Sun frowned and said, "This is just a light curtain. I want to see them." Ji Guasian said indifferently, "As long as you hand over what we want, you can see them." Lin Sun forced himself to restrain the boiling, killing intent in his heart. He turned over his palm, and the eternal boat, which was about a foot in size, appeared. "This is the boat of eternity. I can also imprint the Fortune Divine City's secrets into the jade slip. This is my sincerity. What about you guys? Shouldn't you show me your sincerity as well?" Lin Sun said coldly. Ji Guasian, Gao Yangli, and Jiangju looked at each other and seemed to be discussing something through voice transmission. After a short moment, Jiangju flicked his sleeve, and then two figures appeared out of thin air. However, it was not Lin Fan and Su Bai, but Tang Jiang and Gu Shi. One was Lin Sun's apprentice, and the other was Su Bai's cultivation partner. At this moment, both of them were unconscious and their bodies were imprisoned. As long as you hand over the boat of eternity, I can hand over these two little girls to you right now. Jiangju stared at Lin Sun with his eyes as cold as a knife, looking as calm as ever. Lin Sun was silent for a moment and said word by word, I want to know now where my son Lin Fan and disciple Su Bai are. His voice was already filled with ice-cold, killing intent. Seeing that Lin Sun seemed to be irritated, Ji Guasian sneered and said, Lin Sun, the hostages are in our hands now. If you don't want them alive, you can do it now. If you want them to live, then do as we said and hand over the eternal coffin to complete the first step of the transaction. On the side, Gao Yongli smiled and smoothed things over. Everyone takes what they need, so there's no need to make it too ugly. Taoist Lin, I told you before that Lin Fan and Su Bai aren't in danger at the moment, so you can rest assured. Lin Sun's expression became calmer. He glanced at the three people and said, What if you don't let me go after I hand over the things? Gao Yongli smiled and said, Fellow Taoist Lin, since we came here for the sake of a transaction, we naturally don't wish to fight to the death with you. That doesn't benefit either of us. Besides, this is the eternal true world. With your current level of cultivation, if you really fight with your life on the line, the three of us do not have the confidence that we can fight against you. Only an idiot would do something that requires a lot of effort, but does not bring any benefits. Lin Sun was silent. After a while, he waved his sleeve, and the eternal boat swept toward them. Hand them over. Gao Yongli suddenly showed a look of relief and praised. Taoist Lin, you are very courageous. Ji Guasian, on the other hand, operated his cultivation as if he was facing a formidable enemy. He took the eternal boat in his palm and only relaxed when he was sure that there was no danger. He nodded at Jiangju on the side. Jiangju waved her hand and threw Tang Jiang and Gu Shi, who had been imprisoned by her, to Lin Sun. Lin Sun spread his divine senses and sensed the two women for a moment. After confirming that there was nothing unusual, he put them into the abyssal sword cauldron. Now, can you release my son and disciple? Lin Sun said softly. Ji Guasian frowned and said, Why can't the eternal coffin be opened? Only by refining it can it be opened, Lin Sun said casually. Lin Sun said casually, Don't tell me you don't even understand this simple truth. His voice was filled with undisguised sarcasm. Ji Guasian snorted coldly. If you want your son and disciple, you can come with us to the ruins of fate. The ruins of fate. Lin Sun's eyes burst out with terrifying killing intent. So, you didn't intend to make a good deal with me from the beginning? Gao Yongli hurriedly said, Fellow Taoist Lin, please calm down. We're just taking precautions. After all, even if you hand over the secret of controlling the Fortune Divine City to us right now, we won't be able to verify its authenticity. It's safest to go there with you. Lin Sun no longer concealed his emotions and said coldly, When we get to the ruins of fate and let you control the divine city of fate, I'm afraid you will make other demands, right? Taoist Lin, it seems that you don't trust us? Gao Yongli sighed and smiled bitterly. Lin Sun said, Let me guess, when we get to the ruins of fate, not to mention my son and disciple, even my life will be given to you. Only then will you really feel at ease, right? Gao Yongli still wanted to explain, but Ji Guasian said disdainfully, Unless you don't want your son and disciple's life, otherwise, do you have a choice? He was very calm and fearless, as if he was sure that he could defeat Lin Sun easily. Do I have a choice? Lin Sun suddenly smiled, but the smile made people shudder. I knew it. This deal couldn't be so simple. Don't talk nonsense. Just tell me whether you will come with us or not. Jiangju seemed to be a little impatient and said coldly. Gao Yongli comforted him kindly and said, Taoist Lin, in my opinion, you'd better cooperate with us. We really come to trade with you. If you continue to display such hostility, things won't be easy to handle. Difficult? A cold luster appeared in Lin Sun's abyss-like eyes. No, for me, it's actually very easy. He waved his sleeve. Clatter. The order of Tai Shi emerged and covered the whole world. At this point, Lin Sun no longer worried about being oppressed by the rules of heaven and earth, and his cultivation was suddenly released. Boom! Terrifying killing intent spread out from Lin Sun's body in the surging pressure. That scene made the pupils of Gao Yongli and others shrink in unison. But they didn't panic. It seemed that they had been prepared. Gao Yongli bent his finger and flicked. Rise! Boom! An expanse of crimson light surged out from the sea, burning fiercely and releasing a boundlessly terrifying aura of incineration. It evaporated all the seawater and melted the space around it. We also have the divine order, Gao Yongli said with a smile. At the same time, Jiangju, who looked as cold as ice, waved his hand, and a wave of the divine order spread between heaven and earth. It was as blue as the sea, shining with a strange and terrifying divine light. I knew you wouldn't be so willing to bow your head. Ji Guozian snorted coldly. Boom! Then, thousands of divine rainbows of law emerged from his body, and his power rose steadily. He jumped from the level of rules, transgression, to the creation realm. Ji Guozian was actually a creation realm existence. Boom! The world rumbled and fell into violent chaos. The order of Tai Shi and the other two divine orders clashed fiercely. It was like fire and water colliding with the rules of heaven and earth. The destructive aura created was so strong that it could easily destroy an expanse world. Ji Guozian's cultivation was at the creation realm, while Gao Yongli and Jiangju's bodies surged with the power of the perfect level of rules transgression. Such a lineup, if placed in the ninth heaven, can make the eternal gods feel desperate and helpless. After all, because of the serious threat of the great silence lifeless disaster, there was no creation realm eternal existence in the entire eternal world. But it was clear that Ji Guozian, who came from the ruins of creation, wasn't worried about this. Now, do you think it's easy or not? Ji Guozian's eyes were filled with disdain, as if he was staring at a prey struggling on its deathbed. Fellow Taoist Lin, if you have something to say, let's talk about it. Why are you so impulsive? Listen to my advice. It's best if you come with us. Gao Yongli tried to persuade Lin Sun earnestly. When we captured those hostages earlier, we were merely making some preparations in advance. We didn't have any extravagant hopes that they would be of much use. Since he no longer cares about the lives of his son and disciple, in my opinion, we should directly attack and capture him. Jiangju said calmly. From the beginning to the end, she seemed to have no mood swings and was terrifyingly calm. And the three of them at the moment were all confident in their victory and regarded Lin Sun as a prisoner. Seeing this, Lin Sun couldn't help but laugh out of extreme anger. With this little power, you could be so lawless? He waved his sleeves continuously. Boom, 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 boom. One after another, the divine orders roared out. The light and shadow were bright, and the orders intertwined and overlapped, covering the world. This, Chapter 31:29. 8 divine-level orders soared into the sky, each emanating a different power. Some were like the sun burning the heavens. Some were like the eternal night drowning everything. And some were different powers combined with the Tai Shi order, oppressing the other 2 divine-level orders until they wailed incessantly. If other cultivators saw this, they would definitely have the same feeling. It was as if many heavenly laws were rumbling and fighting. It was terrifying beyond compare. This made the expressions of Ji Guozian and the other 2 become solemn. Sure enough, it was as the rumors said. Lin Sun had already swept through the eternal gods of the ninth heaven. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to refine so many divine-level orders. Attack. Ji Guozian attacked almost immediately. As long as he suppressed Lin Sun, those divine-level orders would be defeated without attacking. Boom! He raised his hand and slapped out. The bone-chilling power of the laws condensed into a palm print. Heaven and earth suddenly seemed to fall into an ancient cold cave. The void froze, and everything froze. This was the power of the creation realm, and it was unimaginably powerful. If there were any other existences in the deviant realm, they would be bound to be frozen by the power of ice and lose their lives. But in the face of such an attack, Lin Sun suddenly punched out. Boom! This punch was incomparably domineering. It forcibly blasted away the bone-chilling palm print. The burst of power spread like a torrent, and heaven and earth fell with it. Ji Guaxian's eyes narrowed. He couldn't believe that his power would be so easily broken through. It should be noted that on the eternal path, he was a whole realm stronger than Lin Sun. This scene also made Gao Yongli and Jiang Ju's hearts tremble. They didn't underestimate Lin Sun. But when they really saw Lin Sun's power, they realized that the rumors were just rumors. Lin Sun's combat power was far beyond the imagination of the world. Kill! Without any hesitation, Gao Yongli and Jiang Ju both attacked Lin Sun from both sides. Confrontation. 36 divine swords appeared around Gao Yongli, and they transformed into a dense and profound sword formation. Clanging sounds resounded through the heavens and the earth as the peerless divine swords slashed down like a vortex. Every single sword emanated the terrifying energy of eternal laws. Go! Jiangju's slender finger slashed out, causing a fine jet black flying knife to flash out. Its edge was dim, yet its speed was extremely swift. It was unafraid of the restraints of space and time, and it was strange, tricky, and impossible to guard against. The pincer attack of the two could be said to be extremely timely. Moreover, each was stronger than the other. Clearly, they had used their full strength without holding anything back. But Lin Sun didn't dodge, and the abyssal sword cauldron rose to the sky. Boom! A myriad of obscure droplets of light flowed about and emanated a might that could suppress the past, present, and future. The sword formation vortex formed from Gao Yongli's 36 swords was instantly dispersed, causing the swords to scatter in a disorderly manner. Gao Yongli was shocked. However, before he could even react, an explosion resounded out as the 36 divine swords collapsed in unison and exploded in midair. They were actually unable to withstand a single suppression from the abyssal sword cauldron. Puff! Gao Yongli coughed up blood and retreated in a sorry state, and he wasn't as composed as he was before. Whoosh! At this time, Jiangju's black flying dagger strangely appeared above Lin Sun's head and fell silently at an incredible speed. Clang! A deafening collision sounded, and the black flying dagger was blocked by a Taoist sword that appeared abruptly. Jiangju's face changed slightly, and she was about to change her move. Lin Sun stretched out his hand and grasped the black flying dagger firmly. With the strength of his palm and fingers, the eternal Taoist weapon with immeasurable power collapsed inch by inch and turned into powder. Under the impact, Jiangju's delicate body trembled, and her cold, pretty face instantly turned pale. She couldn't help but feel palpitations and disbelief. Let me do it. Ji Guaxian, dressed as white as snow, rushed over, holding a golden spear in his hand. His whole body was shining brightly, and there were billions of eternal laws falling down. His power was so great that it was earth-shattering. Boom! The golden spear swept across, crushing the sky in an incomparably domineering manner. The divine light set off was like a chaotic torrent that stirred up the universe. He was extremely powerful. After all, he was in the creation realm. As soon as he made a move, Gao Yongli and Jiang Ju seemed very dim, and they became the most dazzling one in the world. Is the creation realm very strong? Amidst his cold and indifferent voice, Lin Sun stepped forward, and he activated his power to the extreme. He directly sent out the 5 Taoist bodies to attack together with himself. No one knew how furious Lin Sun was in his heart. From the moment he found out that Lin Fan had been captured, it was as if his reverse scale had been touched, and the killing intent in his heart grew madly. If he hadn't forcefully suppressed it, he would simply be on the verge of going berserk at any moment. But now, he had completely erupted, and he had no more scruples. Boom! A great battle erupted, and the world fell into a chaotic state. Lin Sun and Ji Guoxian's figures fought each other like supreme sovereigns in a fierce battle. One held a golden spear in his hand, and he was arrogant and domineering. The power he released with a wave of his hand caused the divine-level orders that covered the world to be impacted. A silhouette that seemed to be immovable for thousands of years attacked together with the 5 Taoist bodies. Even though he was only at the consummate level of the state of justice, he forcefully dissolved all of Ji Guoxian's attacks. He was so powerful that it was shocking. In just an instant, the two of them had already fought for hundreds of rounds, and they were evenly matched. Such a great battle caused Gao Yongli and Jiang Zhu to feel a chill in their hearts, because they didn't have the chance to interfere at all. If they did, they would definitely be heavily injured. However, they couldn't imagine how Lin Sun, who was in the same realm as them, could have such a powerful combat power that he could fight evenly with Ji Guoxian in the creation realm. Boom! The battle grew more and more intense. Ji Guoxian's handsome and cold face revealed surprise, bewilderment, and a serious expression while his heart surged without end. Obviously, they were also shocked by Lin Sun's incredible fighting power. Ji Guoxian took a deep breath, and killing intent surged in his eyes. He released all the power in his body and started to use his trump card. Boom! The golden spear pierced out, and it seemed as if a myriad of spears had charged out at the same time. It covered the heavens and the earth in a formidable array, and it just happened to be like an eternal river. Those who complied would prosper, and those who went against would perish. First published on Embark. This was a great momentum that could shake one's heart. But at this moment, a strand of translucent and dreamy light suddenly flashed out from Ji Guoxian's boat of eternity. Clang! Almost at the same time, a shocking sound rang out, followed by a bone spear piercing out. Ji Guoxian had put the boat of eternity in his sleeve. He didn't expect that such a scene would happen at the moment of the battle. He had no time to dodge at all. Puff! When the bone spear pierced out, Ji Guoxian's body was directly pierced through, and a handful of hot scarlet blood was raised. Bastard! As he cried out in pain, Ji Guoxian's body split open as if he was being dissected. This shocking scene stunned Gao Yongli and Jiang Zhu. They were caught off guard, but Lin Sun had prepared for it. Almost when Ji Guoxian was in danger, Lin Sun moved horizontally in the void at the first time, and the 5 Tao forms closed together. Boom! In an instant, Ji Guoxian's broken body was suppressed, and his spirit was grasped by Lin Sun. Despicable thing! Ji Guoxian's spirit let out a furious roar. How could he expect that there was a hidden killing intent in a treasure like the boat of eternity? Obviously, this was Lin Sun's premeditated plan. Despicable? You don't dare to fight with me fair and square, so you take my son and disciple hostage. Who is despicable? Crack! As Lin Sun said, he slapped Ji Guoxian hard in the face. The latter's spirit shook violently and showed signs of cracking. Go! In the distance, Gao Yongli and Jiang Zhu chose to escape without hesitation. All of a sudden, Ji Guoxian in the creation realm was suppressed, which completely caught them off guard and made them feel that something was wrong. Want to leave? Wishful thinking. Lin Sun's 5 Tao forms rushed over with cold expressions and steaming killing intent in their eyes. They directly blocked Gao Yongli and Jiang Zhu's way of retreat. Lin Sun, you will only kill your son and disciple. Why bother? Gao Yongli's face was bitter and ugly. Bang! The next moment, he was slapped by the scarlet flame Taoist body. His 7 apertures were bleeding, and his body was cracked. Blood was gurgling out. He was in so much pain that his whole body twitched and twisted. Lin Sun was extremely disgusted with this guy who was always smiling, but was actually hypocritical. Kill! Jiang Zhu's figures suddenly turned into countless illusory figures that fled in all directions. There were so many of them that it was hard to tell which one was her main body. Without a doubt, this was an extremely powerful escape technique. Ridiculous! The Blackwater Taoist body sneered. He instantly turned into 3,000 figures and attacked with all his might. Bang, bang, bang. Jiangju's figures exploded one by one. In the blink of an eye, her main body was forced to show itself. The Greenwood Taoist body grabbed her by the neck as if she was a little chick. At this point, Ji Guozian, Gao Yongli, and Jiangju were all captured. Lin Sun put away the 5 Tao forms, looked up at the sky, and waved his sleeve. Rumble. The 2 divine level orders that Gao Yongli and Jiangju had used were already suppressed by Lin Sun's 9 divine level orders. At this moment, apart from the Grand Prime Order, Lin Sun put away all the other divine level orders. Naturally, this could be counted as an unexpected harvest. However, Lin Sun could not care about this at all. How should I deal with them? Xia Ji's beautiful figure had already walked out of the Eternal Arkansas. Her clear eyes swept over Ji Guozian and the others, and her beautiful face was filled with killing intent. She could clearly sense the raging fury in Lin Sun's heart. Let me do it. Lin Sun's expression was calm. At that moment, Ji Guozian's primordial spirit, Gao Yongli, and Jiangju were all suppressed and imprisoned in front of him. They knelt there like prisoners, and their faces were livid with rage. This time, they had made ample preparations. They believed that under the threat of the great desolation, lifeless disaster, no one in the entire eternal true world could be their match. But they did not expect that they would be suppressed. Lin Sun, if we die, your son and disciple will definitely die as well. Ji Guozian tried his best to calm himself down, and his voice was cold. Slap! A slap landed on his face, causing him to see stars. He felt an unprecedented sense of humiliation. As a creation realm existence, when had he ever been humiliated like this? Thank you to the 2 Alliance Masters of Awadara for your reward. On another day, the goldfish will explode in a wave to express their gratitude. Finally, there will be more updates at night. I want to talk about War of the Geniuses with more like-minded people. Follow Yua Literature on WeChat, talk about life, and look for bosom friends. Chapter 31:30. Ji Guozian looked like a young man, but he was actually an old antique that had existed for countless years. He came from the first era of the Ruins of Fortune, and he possessed the cultivation of the creation realm. He was respected wherever he went. So when had he ever been slapped like this? For a time, the strong feeling of humiliation caused his spirit to tremble violently. Gao Yongli and Jiangju became much more obedient when they saw Ji Guozian being slapped so bluntly. Lin Sun looked down at them and said, "Who can tell me where my son and disciple are now?" The Ruins of Fortune. Gao Yongli seemed to be very clearly aware that if he resisted, then he couldn't avoid suffering, so he was very cooperative. If nothing unexpected happens, this should have been brought to the era of the gods. Moreover, if we don't bring you to the era of the gods within 3 days, then your son and disciple will be killed. Lin Sun's black eyes flickered, and he asked again, "How did you leave the Ruins of Fortune?" This question was very important. It was also something that Lin Sun couldn't figure out. Because the power of the culprit behind the scenes of the calamity of an era had sealed off the Ruins of Fortune a very long time ago, causing it to be like a cage. It was impossible for the cultivators of over 100 eras to escape from it. Gao Yongli instantly shut his mouth as if this question was too taboo for him, and he didn't dare reveal the secret behind it. Ji Guozian and Jiangju were the same, and they didn't say a word. Lin Sun pondered and said, "Looks like your appearance is related to the culprit behind the scenes of the calamity of an era. Otherwise, how could a creation realm existence dare to risk his life to descend to the eternal world?" "You." Gao Yongli's expression changed slightly. Lin Sun said, "There's no need to be so surprised. It's very easy to guess such a thing. But I'm very curious. How did the culprit contact you?" Gao Yongli fell silent again. Jiangju said coldly, "I can guarantee that you're bound to be unable to get an answer from us. You could try if you don't believe me." She seemed very calm, and she seemed to be fearless of death. Lin Sun grabbed her neck, and he stared at her cold and beautiful face as he said, "Don't worry, I won't let you die so easily." Bang! In the next moment, Jiangju's delicate and slender body exploded apart, and before her shattered flesh and blood could spray into the air, she was firmly restrained. Then, wisps of mysterious power of rules appeared in Lin Sun's palm, condensing into an illusory furnace. It was condensed from the blood transformation law, body transformation law, and Tao transformation law of the bottomless ruins 5 sequences. Under the shocked gaze of Jiangju's primordial spirit, the flesh and blood that her body had transformed into was slowly refined by the cauldron. In the end, they transformed into a fist-sized scarlet and resplendent eternal bloodstone, an eternal Tao stone that emanated a shocking fluctuation and a strand of the energy of the eternal laws. All of them were extremely pure and possessed a primitive aura. This scene caused Ji Guizhen and Gao Yongli to shudder, and their expressions changed. In my opinion, rather than killing all of you, it would be better for me to refine all of you into the power of the Great Path. This is an extremely rare eternal treasure. Lin Sun said indifferently, "Of course, as I said just now, I won't let you die like this. The most painful thing in this world is nothing more than to beg for death." The faces of Ji Guizhen, Gao Yongli, and Jiangju had become extremely ugly. Haha, even so, you can't get what you want to know from us. Jiangju's primordial spirit sneered. She was fearless, because the divine soul of the eternal realm was extremely powerful. Perhaps it could be suppressed and killed, but it was impossible to search their souls. Lin Sun certainly knew this. However, this was not a problem for him. He used his fingers as a knife, exerted the power of the blade of time, and slashed Jiangju's primordial spirit. Chi! In the blink of an eye, Jiangju's primordial spirit, which was full of eternal aura, fell to the immortal realm before it stopped. This incredible scene stimulated Jiangju to scream in horror. How dare you deprive me of the Great Path? For an eternal realm figure, what could be crueler than this punishment? All of a sudden, Ji Guizhen and Gao Yongli felt cold all over, as if they had fallen into an ice cave. They recognized that this was the power of time. A long time ago, the Eternal Night Divine Emperor also mastered this forbidden magic. If I don't do this, how can I learn something from the memory of your divine soul? Lin Sun said, and began to search Jiangju's soul. Boom! Lin Sun captured the torrent of memories like a tide, including Jiangju's origin, growth, and cultivation experience, all emerged one by one. But soon, Lin Sun frowned, because in Jiangju's memory, there was nothing he wanted to know. For example, from the beginning to the present, Jiangju had been acting according to the orders of the clan behind her. I told you, you can get nothing at all. Jiangju's primordial spirit screamed. Her cultivation was deprived and fell to the immortal realm, which made her feel like dying. Lin Sun said calmly, "No, at least I know where the Jiang clan behind you is located, how many clansmen there are in Jiang clan now, and many secrets related to Jiang clan. That's enough. You dare to attack my Jiang clan?" Jiangju couldn't believe it. "Why not?" Lin Sun said, and suppressed the woman's primordial spirit into the abyssal sword cauldron. He looked at Ji Guizhen and Gao Yongli. "What about you? Do you want me to do it, or tell me? If I say I don't know, will you believe me?" Gao Yongli's face was ashen, full of bitterness. "Of course not," Lin Sun said and grabbed him. As Lin Sun spoke, he grabbed him up. First, he crushed his body, and then he cut his spirit with the power of the time blade. Suddenly, Gao Yongli was horrified to find that his cultivation suddenly fell to the immortal realm. Suddenly, he couldn't bear such a blow and let out a heart-wrenching scream. No, no. But how could Lin Sun be merciful? He directly searched his soul. After a while, he frowned again. Gao Yongli didn't know the reason, just like Jiangju. He only knew that this action was related to the culprit behind the calamity of the era. After suppressing Gao Yongli's primordial spirit, Lin Sun looked at Ji Guazian and said, "What about you? Do you have anything to say?" Ji Guazian's face was already livid and gloomy, and his eyes almost popped out. He gritted his teeth and said, "Lin Sun, this is just the beginning. As long as you don't die, your family, your friends, and everyone related to you will all suffer." It was as if he was venting, full of resentment and curses. Lin Sun waved his fingers, and the power of the blade of time slashed on Ji Guazian's primordial spirit. On Guazian's primordial spirit, the latter's realm of the great Tao also fell. But he was a creation realm existence, after all. Just this attack made him maintain the cultivation of the law-defying realm. Lin Sun didn't say anything and continued to slash with the power of the blade of time. Soon, Ji Guazian's primordial spirit became extremely weak and fell to the immortal level. During this period, he tried to destroy his own primordial spirit, but it was firmly suppressed by Lin Sun. So at this moment, his whole person seemed to have completely collapsed, and his expression was numb and dull. Lin Sun's expression was calm, and he continued to search the soul. After a while, his eyes lit up, and his heart was filled with excitement and resentment. In the memory of Ji Guazian's divine soul, he saw scenes. For example, Lin Fan and Su Bai were taken away by an old man named Gongya Lu to the ruins of fate yesterday. According to Ji Guazian's arrangement, Gongya Lu would take Lin Fan and Su Bai to the Ji clan in the era of gods to be detained. Moreover, Ji Guazian and Gongya Lu agreed that once he, Gao Yongli, or Jiang Ju were in trouble, they would immediately kill Lin Fan and Su Bai. This made Lin Sun break out in a cold sweat. Fortunately, he didn't kill these three people immediately, otherwise, the consequences would be absolutely unimaginable. At the same time, Lin Sun finally knew how Ji Guazian and the others left the ruins of fate. It turned out that Ji Guazian had a stone statue engraved with the word absolute beginning in his hand. It was with the power of this thing that they easily broke through the blockade of the ruins of fate. Before they headed to the eternal true world, regardless of whether it was Gao Yongli, Jiangju, or the old man called Gongya Lu, all of them were placed in an eternal Tao vessel Ji Guazian brought with him, and he brought them out of the ruins of serendipity. Therefore, Gao Yongli and Jiangju didn't know how they left. Absolute beginning stone statue. Lin Sun's heart trembled, and he immediately began to search for the items on Ji Guazian's body. Soon, a stone statue appeared in Lin Sun's sight. This thing was 9 inches tall, and it looked like jade, but not jade. It was completely black, and the stone statue was obviously in the shape of a human. It was tall, but the face was blurred, and it was impossible to tell whether it was a man or a woman. 2 extremely mysterious inscriptions of the Grand Tao were engraved at the bottom of the stone statue. Absolute beginning. The words were simply like the marks of the supreme heaven Tao, and they were suffused with a forbidden charm. Lin Sun only needed to take a glance at it to feel an indescribable pressure that assaulted his face. It was as if he'd inadvertently offended a supreme existence, and it caused his heart to palpitate. That's it. Lin Sun took a deep breath and restrained the palpitation in his heart. All those years ago in the ruins of fate, he talked about the absolute beginning divine statue with senior brother Ling Xuanzi. Ling Xuanzi had once snuck into the Zen sect, and he'd looked through the books of his Zen sect to understand some things about this mysterious treasure. According to Ling Xuanzi's inference, one would be able to contact the culprit behind the scenes of the calamity of an era if they obtained it. Now, Ji Guazian also had a similar absolute beginning stone statue. There was no doubt that their actions this time had been ordered by the culprit behind the scenes of the calamity of an era. In fact, Lin Sun was extremely suspicious that the culprit behind the scenes had long since known that he'd successfully attained eternal Tao. Perhaps the culprit already knew that the Zen sect, the Shaman sect, and the 12 eternal gods were of no use. So the culprit behind the scenes was unwilling to accept defeat just like that, and he'd started to borrow the power of the various civilizations in the ruins of fate to deal with him. More updates for you. Chapter 31:31. Lin Sun was overwhelmed with emotions. He looked at the primordial stone statue carefully and felt his heart palpitate more and more. It was as if the statue had a strange magic that brought an irresistible chill to his mind. But at the same time, there was an irresistible impulse that made Lin Sun want to sense the power of the statue with his divine awareness. This impulse was so strong that it affected Lin Sun's consciousness and made him want to feel the power of the stone statue. At this time, Xie Ji's voice suddenly rang in his ears. "Lin Sun, what's wrong?" The sound was as clear as the sound of nature, but at this moment, like a clap of thunder, it suddenly woke Lin up from the extreme impulse and desire. He broke out in a cold sweat, and his face turned pale. One evil stone statue. Lin Sun couldn't calm down. The feeling of palpitation, desire, and impulsiveness was like an invisible hand grabbing onto his consciousness and state of mind. If Xie Ji didn't speak in time, he would have sensed the stone statue with his divine awareness. In that case, what would be the consequence? Lin Sun didn't know, but when he looked at the stone statue, he was already on guard. "Xie Ji, did you hear Sai just now?" Lin Sun asked suddenly. Xie Ji walked over and stood beside Lin Sun. She shook her head and said, "No, you didn't look right just now, as if your soul was sucked away. That's why I called you." Lin Sun was stunned. "Didn't you hear it?" Earlier, at the instant he was jolted awake, he'd clearly heard a strand of Sai resound, and it was indistinct to the extreme. When he wanted to capture it, he was unable to sense it any longer. Taking a deep breath, Lin Sun was lost in thought. In the memory of Ji Guozian's soul, there was no record of how he got the primordial stone statue. It was as if it was erased. Lin Sun didn't know how Ji Guozian communicated with the primordial stone statue. But the more he thought about it, the more abnormal it seemed. Is the primordial stone statue the real killer move? Lin Sun suddenly thought of a possibility. It seemed that Ji Guozian and the others wanted to deal with him, but in fact, the primordial stone statue was the biggest killer move against him. If this conjecture was true, then he had accidentally used his divine sense to sense it just now, and it was very likely that he had met with a disaster. However, Lin Sun was not sure about this. "I would like to see what kind of tricks you have up your sleeves." Lin Sun took a deep breath and circulated the eternal law. He transformed into a cauldron and suppressed the 9-inch-tall absolute beginning stone statue with a strange aura. His eternal laws were condensed into form from the complete order of rebirth, and it possessed unbelievable effects. It was precisely the order of rebirth that allowed him to step onto the path towards the eternal Tao, and it was even to the extent that the mastermind behind the scenes took him to be a threat. It was precisely because of this that Lin Sun chose to suppress it with the eternal law. Sure enough, an incredible scene appeared. The stone statue suddenly exploded into powder, and the two words "absolute beginning," engraved at the bottom, suddenly turned into a wisp of gray lightning. It was as thin as a hair and extremely small, but as soon as it appeared, it released an unimaginably horrible power, which made Lin Sun feel like falling into an ice cave, an extremely strong fatal breath. It was as if death was imminent. Lin Sun's heart thumped, and his hands and feet became cold. The breath was so terrifying that it made him feel powerless and desperate. Right at this moment, the nirvana profundity of the eternal law produced a shocking fluctuation, and it forcefully suppressed the wisp of gray lightning that was as thin as a cow's hair. Bang! Bang! Shocking sounds of collision resounded. The gray lightning kept attacking and trying to break free from the suppression of the nirvana profundity. However, as the nirvana profundity continued to boil and rumble, all the attacks of the gray lightning were dissolved one by one, and in the end, it was firmly suppressed. Noticing this scene, Lin Sun was drenched in cold sweat. At that moment, it was as if he had taken a trip to the gates of hell, and the strong aura of death caused him to feel a lingering fear even now. Looking at the gray lightning again, although it was suppressed, it hadn't been refined. Instead, it kept shuttling back and forth within the nirvana profundity, as if it was trying to find a way out. It gave Lin Sun the feeling that the Nirvana profundity was a fish tank, and the gray lightning was a fish that was trying to break free from the fish tank, but it was destined to be in vain. Lin Sun took a few deep breaths, and he calmed his mind before he started to size up the gray lightning. It seemed to be as thin as a cow's hair and was extremely inconspicuous, yet was formed from an extremely mysterious and strange energy of the laws, and the aura it emanated was terrifying to an unbelievable extent. Merely looking at it caused one to arouse feelings of terror and despair. Right, the absolute beginning stone statue from before was suffused with this strange aura. Lin Sun's gaze flickered, and he faintly understood. The gray lightning was formed from the two mysterious Grand Tao inscriptions of the absolute beginning stone statue, and these inscriptions were definitely left behind by the culprit behind the scenes. This undoubtedly meant that it was very likely that the gray lightning was the energy of the laws possessed by the culprit behind the scenes. When he thought up to here, Lin Sun couldn't help but feel excited. The culprit behind the scenes had always been extremely mysterious. For numerous eras, no one knew the origins of the culprit behind the scenes, nor did they know if it was some sort of living being or formed from some sort of law. Even supreme existences like Chun Linkong and Chun, she were searching for clues about the culprit behind the scenes. It was obvious how mysterious the culprit behind the scenes was. Yet now, it was very likely that it had suppressed a strand of the laws that belonged to the culprit behind the scenes. How could Lin Sun not be excited? If I'm able to reconstruct and rebirth these laws, then wouldn't it mean that I'll be able to grasp the same laws as the culprit behind the scenes? Moreover, since such a strange and terrifying laws can be suppressed by the profundities of nirvana, does it mean that the path I seek towards the Tao isn't inferior to the culprit behind the scenes? Numerous thoughts flashed through Lin Sun's mind. However, Lin Sun quickly calmed down. Presently, it was merely a strand that was extremely inconspicuous that was fine like a cow's hair, yet its strength was already terrifying to such an extent. It was obvious how terrifying it would be if the culprit behind the scenes utilized its true strength. Moreover, Lin Sun acutely noticed that even though the profundities of nirvana were able to suppress that strand of gray lightning, it was practically impossible for him to refine and absorb it, let alone reconstruct and rebirth it. Looks like the gap between my Grand Tao and the culprit behind the scenes is too huge, causing the profundities of nirvana to be extremely limited, and I'm merely able to suppress this strand of the laws. Lin Sun vaguely understood. This didn't make him feel depressed. On the contrary, he was full of expectations. When he reached the creation realm or the boundless realm one day, would he be able to refine this strand of gray lightning and carry out reconstruction and nirvana? Because the gray lightning was transformed from the word absolute beginning and came from the culprit behind the scenes, Lin Sun called it absolute beginning law. Lin Sun, what's wrong with you? Xia Ji couldn't help asking. She had been paying attention to Lin Sun all the time. She found that Lin Sun's expression was constantly changing, and even his chi had changed many times. She couldn't help but feel a little worried. Nothing. I just made some new discoveries just now. Lin Sun smiled. It was indeed a new discovery. He didn't expect that he would control a strand of absolute beginning law that belonged to the culprit behind the scenes at this moment. How should I deal with this person? Xia Ji looked at Ji Guozian's spirit in Lin Sun's hand. At this moment, Ji Guozian's face had already turned ashen. He was silent and seemed to have completely admitted defeat. Keep him for now. I'll deal with him later. As Lin Sun said, he stuffed Ji Guozian's spirit into the abyssal sword cauldron. Then he looked at Xia Ji and said, Xia Ji, let's go back to Yuan's sect first. Yuan's sect. When Xian Failing learned what happened from Lin Sun, his face became extremely solemn, and he said, So, you plan to go to the ruins of fate? Lin Sun nodded yes. Before I leave, I will leave the Black Water Taoist body and the 8 divine-level orders to guard Yuan's sect. In this way, even if there are enemies from the ruins of fate, they can't break Yuan's sect. In this way, I can be completely at ease. Xian Failing took a deep breath and said, "Be careful." Lin Sun slightly cupped his hands. "Senior, before I return, don't let this news leak out, lest others worry." "Okay." Xian Failing nodded. Then, Lin Sun returned to the cave residence and stood in front of Zhao Jingxian, who was sleeping for a while. Then he quietly turned around and left. "Xie Ji, let's go." On this day, Lin Sun and Xie Ji went to the ruins of fate with the power of the Sword of Fate. The ruins of fate. The Great Qin era, the ninth forbidden area. Buzz. As the space fluctuated, Lin Sun's figure appeared out of thin air. At that moment, a terrifying and oppressive rule power rushed towards Lin Sun, making him feel as if an invisible cage was pressing down on him, trying to suppress him. Lin Sun immediately retracted his eternal aura, and the oppressive and terrifying rule power instantly disappeared, turning into nothingness. Back then, Lin Sun, who possessed the celestial longevity realm immortal cultivation, entered the ruins of fate with the help of the Sword of Fate, and arrived at the ninth forbidden area of the Great Qin era. Now, he was already in eternal existence that surpassed the Great Perfection realm. When he returned to this place, his state of mind was completely different. Suddenly, Lin Sun keenly sensed that there was an extremely shocking transcendent realm immortal aura near the ninth forbidden area. Moreover, this aura was moving the void with all its might, fleeing into the distance. Obviously, the space fluctuation caused by Lin Sun's arrival had already caught this person's attention, and he immediately chose to retreat. Lin Sun's eyes flickered, and he suddenly grabbed the air. In the void far away, an old man's figure suddenly fell out of the void. Before he could stand firm, he was caught by Lin Sun's palm force and was carried in front of Lin Sun like a bug. This old man wore a black robe, and his hair was as white as snow. In the Great Qin era, where there was no eternal realm immortal cultivation, he was already a supreme existence. But now his expression was filled with fear and shock, and his body was trembling uncontrollably. Chapter 31-32. Lin Sun looked down at the black-robed elder and said, "I'll give you a chance to live. Tell me, why did you run away?" The black-robed elder's face was pale, and he said with difficulty, "Liangxiu clan, Ying clan, and Yin clan, the three clans ordered me to stay here a long time ago. Once I discover anyone appearing here, I'll inform them immediately. The reason why I ran away was because I sensed that you're an eternal realm cultivator. I had no choice but to run for my life." "I see." Lin Sun nodded. He knew about the three clans. When he first came to the ruins of fate, he learned that the three clans had sent an immortal realm cultivator to guard the flowing light forbidden zone with the Great Qin divine clan's experts. They were waiting for the Skirich master, who possessed the eternal boat, to come to their doorstep. Later on, with the help of Chun Lin Kong's avatar, Lin Sun successfully entered the flowing light forbidden zone and rescued his parents. At that time, Lin Sun learned some secrets about Xie Ji's past life. However, Lin Sun didn't expect that the three clans were still unwilling to give up and send a transcendent realm cultivator to guard the flowing light forbidden zone even after 100 years had passed. No. Lin Sun suddenly realized the problem. How could the three clans be so sure that he would return to the ruins of fate? Could it be that the three clans were just like Ji Guizhen, Gao Yangli, and Jiangju, acting under the orders of the mastermind behind the calamity of an era? He looked at the black-robed elder. "The three clans didn't tell you anything else?" The black-robed elder shook his head. "The three clans only told me to deliver the message." Lin Sun asked, "Where will the message be delivered to?" The black-robed elder took out a dark green bone talisman and handed it to Lin Sun. "As long as you crush this bone talisman, the three clans' forces will come here immediately." Lin Sun held the talisman in his hand and looked at it for a while. "Why didn't you crush it earlier?" The black-robed elder said bitterly, "I was worried that if I did that, I would die even faster if I couldn't escape. I might be able to keep my life if I didn't do it." "Smart man." Lin Sun thought for a moment and said, "I will suppress you here for 3 months. After 3 months, you can regain your freedom." The black-robed old man felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He cupped his hands and bowed. "Thank you, Senior, for not killing me." Next, the black-robed old man was imprisoned in an underground cave by Lin Sun. After doing all this, Lin Sun left directly. He was not in the mood to care about what the Liangxiu clan, the Ying clan, and the Yin clan were planning. He only wanted to rescue Lin Fan and Su by as soon as possible. Therefore, the dark cyan bone talisman handed over by the old man was also hidden by Lin Sun. Otherwise, given his personality, he would have crushed the bone talisman long ago and waited for the three god clans to send people over. Whoosh! After 15 minutes, Lin Sun quietly left the Great Qin era and came to the vast starry sky. This was the true scene of the ruins of creation. Over 100 civilizations resided in this boundless starry sky, and every single civilization was protected by the God Clan. However, not all civilizations had eternal realm existences. For example, in the Great Qin era, there were no eternal realm existences. Lin Sun had learned about this situation as early as when he came here for the first time, but it was different from before. At this moment, walking in this vast starry sky, Lin Sun keenly sensed an invisible taboo rule power, like a layer of shackles, covering the boundless void. Moreover, Lin Sun felt an extremely familiar breath. The taboo rule power was exactly the same as the trace of primordial rule he had suppressed. It was suffused with the same strange and unpredictable power fluctuations. This made Lin Sun immediately judge that the taboo rule power was the power of the manipulator behind the scenes that covered the entire ruins of creation. No wonder Senior Chen Linkong had no choice but to leave the ruins of creation after he exposed the strength of his main body all those years ago. The power of the mastermind behind the scenes is everywhere, and it's like a large net that covers the entire ruins of creation. Once one's targeted by it, one would be like a fish that's fallen into a large net, and it's impossible for one to escape. Lin Sun's black eyes flickered. He was not worried about this. The power of the nirvana ultimacy gave him the confidence to resist the primordial rule. However, if his eternal realm cultivation was exposed, he would definitely be attacked by the primordial rule. In that case, the consequences would be very serious. Therefore, Lin Sun had been suppressing his aura and moving all along the way. In the following time, he moved all the way. Every step he took was like the stars moving, shuttling through the boundless starry sky. It seemed like he was taking a leisurely stroll, but in fact his speed had already reached a shocking level. Lin Sun had already searched the souls of Ji Guizhen, Gao Yangli, and Jiangju, and had a clear understanding of the various situations in the Gods' era. In the ruins of creation, the Gods' era was worthy of being the first era civilization. The Jiang clan, Gaoyang clan, and Ji clan were the three supreme rulers of the Gods' era. Before the Gods' era encountered the calamity of the era and appeared in the ruins of creation, these three clans were so rich that they were far stronger than the 12 eternal clans in the ninth heaven of the eternal world. Each of the clans had many boundless realm cultivators, and creation realm cultivators were also a common sight. It could be said that in terms of the overall foundation of an era civilization, the Gods' era was far superior to the Lingwu era that Lin Sun was in. However, such a powerful era of the gods was also destroyed by the calamity of the era. Before the calamity of the era, the creation realm and boundless realm cultivators from the Gods' era had already gone to the Kunlun ruins to fight. As a result, although the Gods' era survived in the ruins of creation, the three clans suffered great losses, and there were no more terrifying boundless realm and creation realm cultivators guarding them. However, as time passed, the three clans of the Gods' era recovered bit by bit. Now, there were already many creation realm cultivators guarding them. This situation also appeared in the civilizations of other eras. These eras had all suffered in the calamity of the era and survived in the ruins of creation. After experiencing the passage of time, they had survived until now. Of course, there are also exceptions. For example, The immortal martial era was completely annihilated in the calamity of the era and could not survive in the ruins of creation. For these eras in the order of creation, the only drawback was that the cultivators distributed in these eras could not leave the ruins of creation, no matter how high or low their cultivation was. The reason was that the power of the manipulator behind the scenes had sealed and confined the entire ruins of creation like a huge prison. It was worth mentioning that although many eras already had creation realm cultivators guarding them, so far there had never been a boundless realm cultivator. The reason was also very simple. Only those who had survived the great silence, fateless tribulation could prove the boundless realm. In the ruins of creation, no one could withstand the blow of the great silence, fateless tribulation. They were either killed or failed to pass the tribulation. As powerful as the eternal Night Emperor was, he almost died under this tribulation. In the end, he could only reincarnate and cultivate again. However, the eternal Night Emperor's tribulation was relatively special. Lin Sun did not think that the eternal Night Emperor, who had mastered the three supreme taboo Tao of cause and effect, fate and time, had not even stepped into the boundless realm. This was simply impossible. According to Lin Sun's speculation, the eternal Night Emperor should have crossed the great silence, fateless tribulation, and crossed it more than once. Before the end of each era, the great silence, fateless tribulation would descend. And one must know that the eternal Night Emperor had walked through many eras in the past and was destined to survive the bombardment of many great silence, fateless tribulation. This could also be inferred that she must have the cultivation of the boundless realm without a doubt. It was just that a long time ago, when she went to the divine city of creation, she could not withstand the bombardment of the great silence, fateless tribulation. Even so, she was not obliterated, but hid in the flowing light, forbidden region, and carried out a heaven-defying reincarnation and cultivation path with the identity of Xia Ji. From this, it could be seen how terrifying the power of the eternal Night Emperor was at the peak. Moreover, Lin Sun now also knew that the boundless realm was divided into two realms, lesser boundless realm and greater boundless realm. The lesser boundless realm was divided into three levels: first tribulation, second tribulation, and third tribulation. In other words, those who crossed the great silence, fateless tribulation once could be called greater boundless realm. Those who crossed the great silence, fateless tribulation thrice were called greater boundless realm. Generally speaking, existences like this that had already stepped foot on the ultimate path of the eternal Tao had practically fought to leave the Kunlun ruins, and there was practically no trace of them in the world. Moreover, according to Lin Sun's inference, the eternal Night Emperor who controlled the energy of karma, fate, and time was at least in existence at the lesser boundless realm, and it was even extremely likely that he had already stepped into the greater boundless realm. As for why the eternal Night Emperor had appeared in the ruins of creation and which era he belonged to, Lin Sun had no way of knowing. Perhaps only after Xia Ji completely refined all the cultivation left behind by the eternal Night Emperor would he be able to solve these mysteries. As he pondered just like this, Lin Sun's figure had already vanished in the depths of the boundless starry sky. The era of the gods. This world was divided into three great territories, and they were the demon vanquishing region, the divine light region, and the great Zhou region. These three territories were respectively controlled by the Jiang clan, the High Sun clan, and the Ji clan. Every single territory was boundlessly vast, and there were countless minor worlds and planes that dotted them like stars. The great Zhou region, the divine mountain of Phoenix Perch. The lair of the Ji clan was also regarded as the first divine mountain of the Great Zhou region. Late at night, in an ancient forbidden area of the divine mountain of Phoenix Perch, the divine fire was raging. The figures of Lin Fan and Su Bai were each tied to a black stone pillar, and the blood-colored divine chains as thin as a thumb tightly bound their whole bodies, as if they were prisoners waiting to be judged. Both of them had disheveled hair and were unconscious. And in the distance, a series of footsteps sounded in the middle of the night. The patriarch of the Ji clan, Ji Bowen, had come with a group of big shots. P.S. Thank you, Brother Shija, for your monthly tickets. I'll continue adding updates tonight. If I want to talk about War of the Talents with more like-minded people, follow You Read Literature on WeChat. Talk about life and find confidence. Chapter 31-33. Jeev Bowen was tall and sturdy like a mountain. Dressed in a purple robe, he strode forward with a majestic gait. He had been in charge of the clan for countless years, and he himself was an eternal existence at the late stage of the realm of justice. By G. Bowen's side were some of the major figures of the G clan, and amongst them were two elders who had reached the level of transcending justice. The entire G clan now had 4 existences at the realm of creation and 12 existences at the realm of justice. Among the hundreds of civilizations in the ruins of creation, this kind of heritage was enough to firmly rank in the top 3. The night was as dark as ink. G. Bowen stopped in front of the 2 black stone pillars, his eyes sizing up Lin Fan and Su Bai, who were bound by the god-locking chains. He sighed softly. One has the bloodline of the devourer of the abyss and can inherit the mantle of the eternal night, divine emperor. The other has a peerless sword bone. The talents of these 2 youngsters are much more amazing than their peers in my clan. Beside him, the big shots of the G clan were also sizing up the unconscious Lin Fan and Su Bai. Their eyes were unscrupulous, as if they were examining prey. Patriarch, you didn't bring us here in the middle of the night to comment on the talents of these 2 little things, did you? Someone chuckled. This person was dressed in green, his willow beard fluttering in the wind. His name was Ji Zhongshan, an existence at the realm of justice. Of course not. G. Bowen laughed. With these 2 hostages in hand, and the means of ancestor Gui Zhun, we can naturally bring Lin Sun to our territory. After a pause, he continued, as for bringing you here now, there's one thing we need to do. Please enlighten us, Patriarch, Ji Zhongshan said. G. Bowen's eyes flickered. Tomorrow, some old fellows from the High Sun clan and the Jiang clan will come together to divide up the fortunes of Lin Sun with us. However, the secret of controlling the divine city of creation can be shared, but there's only one eternal coffin. The eyes of the big shots suddenly became subtle. Patriarch, are you planning to make some preparations in advance? A hale and hearty old woman with a head full of silver hair asked. Her name was Ji Zhangyun, and she had reached the realm of justice. That's right. G. Bowen looked at Lin Fan. This little fella possesses the innate talent of the devouring abyss. I'm sure all of you are aware that rumor has it that only such an innate talent is able to grasp all the secrets of the eternal coffin. I understand now. The Patriarch intends to take away this kid's innate talent before the forces of the High Sun clan and Jiang clan arrive. Ji Changyun chuckled. That's good, that's good. Her face was kind, but under the light of the lamp, her smile looked eerie and terrifying. The others also laughed as they suddenly understood. I might as well take the sword bone from this kid as well. Ji Zhongshan looked at Su Bai with a fiery gaze. Although my great-grandson is talented, he can't compare to this innate sword bone. If he can have this talent, my great-grandson will have the opportunity to attack the eternal realm in less than 10,000 years. What if the High Sun clan and Jiang clan notice this and become displeased? Someone hesitated. G. Bowen said calmly, this time, the Lord Ruler behind the scenes of the calamity of the era has chosen our G clan as the emissary and bestowed us with an absolute beginning stone statue. No matter how displeased they are, they can only hold it in. Everyone could not help but laugh. Everyone, since the beginning of time, our G clan has experienced countless calamities to survive to this day. But now, a chance to change our fate is right in front of us. As long as we seize it, our G clan may no longer be restricted by the ruins of creation. G. Bowen's eyes shone. G. Bowen's eyes shone. His words caused everyone's emotions to surge. Whether it was the eternal coffin or the secrets of the divine city of creation, they could be said to be supreme fortunes, but compared to the chance to change the fate of their clan, they were not important. This time, as long as they completed the decree of the Lord Ruler behind the scenes, Their Ji clan would no longer be restricted by the ruins of creation, and they would truly walk out of the era of the gods. This was what they dreamed of the most. After calming himself down, Ji Bowen turned his gaze towards Lin Fan once more. He instructed, "Patriarch Longcloud, please do it and extract the innate gift of the devourer of the abyss from this child." The hale and hearty old woman, Ji Longcloud, laughed as she assented. She stepped forward and stretched out her right arm. Her 5 fingers, which were as thin as chicken claws, stabbed fiercely into Lin Fan's chest. Bang! A bloody hole appeared, and blood sprayed everywhere. The unconscious Lin Fan suddenly let out a muffled grunt of pain as he regained consciousness. He looked at the distant crowd, then lowered his head to look at the hand that had stabbed into his chest. His handsome face turned pale, and cold sweat covered his forehead. A heart-wrenching, lung-splitting pain constantly tormented his mind, but even in the face of this cruel, bloody torture, his expression remained incomparably calm. "Be good. It will only hurt for a while. Once this old woman has completely extracted the innate gift from you, I will help you heal your wound." Ji Longcloud had a benevolent look on her face. She was all smiles, and her voice was very gentle. However, her actions could only be described as cruel. Her fingers stabbed into Lin Fan's chest, and her 5 fingers unleashed an extremely domineering eternal power as she dissected Lin Fan's spiritual vein. Blood flowed out like a waterfall. "Old thing, if you have any tricks up your sleeves, just use them." Lin Fan's voice was hoarse as he gritted his teeth. His eyes were filled with ice-cold hatred. "As long as I, Lin Fan, survive this time, I will definitely kill all of you in the future. Ha! Everyone look, this little bastard is still threatening us." Yin Changshan couldn't help but laugh from afar. The others laughed as well. The weak's threats were always howls of despair. Only a fool would care about it. This kid probably doesn't know that his father is also in trouble. Who in this world can save him? Someone said leisurely. "What? Father is also in trouble?" Lin Fan's heart trembled, and his expression changed. No matter how much pain and torture he suffered, he would not frown at all, but he could not ignore his father's life and death. "It can't be that I harmed Father. It must be like this. Didn't they capture me to deal with Father?" For a moment, Lin Fan's eyes were bloodshot, and his handsome face became extremely hideous. He roared, "My father will never be in trouble." His roar was like the roar of a beast, full of anger. However, what he got in return was a burst of indifferent laughter. No one cared about this. Where is this? The great Zhou territory of the era of the gods. This was the territory of the Ji family, on Phoenix-perched Divine Mountain. Not to mention Lin Sun. Even if it were other eternal realm figures, it would be no different from courting death. "Oh, forget it. Let me take this kid's sword bone." Ji Changshan couldn't help it anymore. He went straight to Su Bai and gently swiped his fingertips. Su Bai's abdomen was cut open. Splash, blood poured like a waterfall, and under the stimulation of severe pain, Su Bai also woke up from his coma. He looked at Ji Changshan in front of him. Ji Bowen and the others in the distance suddenly understood their situation, and their cold faces were full of murderous intent. From beginning to end, he did not say a word, but the coldness in his eyes made the existence of the eternal realm feel a little uncomfortable. "What are you looking at? I'll dig your eyes out." Smack! Ji Changshan flew into a rage out of humiliation and slapped Su Bai's cheek. The fiery slap did not make Su Bai feel any emotional fluctuations. He stared at Ji Changshan, his eyes full of indifference. "Senior brother Su Bai, I didn't expect you to be captured by these bastards." Lin Fan's hoarse voice came from the side. Su Bai trembled all over, and he looked in disbelief at Lin Fan, who was also tied to the black stone pillar. His originally cold and emotionless face completely changed. "Lin Fan, how could it be you?" In his field of vision, Lin Fan's chest was pierced open by Ji Changyan's palm, and fresh blood flowed out ceaselessly. That cruel and bloody scene caused his eyes to almost split open with rage, and he shouted explosively, "Let him go, and I'll be at your mercy." His voice was filled with anxiety. He was not afraid of death, but he could not watch helplessly as his master's child was tortured to such a state. Hee, who do you think you are? Can you compare to this kid? Ji Changshan was disdainful. Senior brother Su Bai, don't talk nonsense with these old beasts. They don't dare to confront my father head-on, so they can only use such despicable and shameless means to torture us. Lin Fan's voice was hoarse, and his whole body trembled violently. He felt his spiritual vein being stripped away bit by bit, and that kind of heart-wrenching pain made his face extremely pale. Ji Bowen snorted coldly. Cover their mouths, lest they dirty our ears. Okay. Both Ji Changyun and Ji Changshan agreed with a smile. At this moment, the bone-chilling killing intent appeared like a blade, causing Ji Changyun and Ji Changshan to stiffen, and their expressions changed at the same time. This was the core forbidden area of their Ji family, and Ji Changyun and Ji Changshan had not been on guard at all from beginning to end, looking extremely relaxed. Who would think that there would be danger in their own home? And this killing intent came so quickly, almost appearing out of thin air and locking onto them in an instant. Not good. The two old antiques of the law-defying realm dodged with all their might almost instinctively, and their reaction speed could be described as shocking. Boom! Just as their figures left, two figures appeared in front of Lin Fan and Su Bai respectively. It was Lin Sun's main body and the green wood Taoist physique. This sudden scene caught Ji Bowen and the others off guard, and their expressions all changed. How is that possible? A minute. How could someone break in? The disturbance in the field, caught Ji Bowen and the others off guard. This was Phoenix Perch Divine Mountain. It was the forbidden area of their clan. It was covered with more than one kind of divine level order power. But who would dare to imagine that someone would sneak in silently under such a night and suddenly kill them at this moment? This was so sudden that no one had expected it, so they were all shocked. Father, Master. At the same time, Lin Fan and Su Bai's eyes widened in disbelief as they looked at the familiar tall figure that appeared in front of them, feeling as unreal as a dream. More updates for you. Chapter 31-34. The bloody hole in Lin Fan's chest was still dripping blood. His hair was disheveled, and his handsome cheeks were pale and transparent. Su Bai's stomach had been directly cut open. Both of them were bound to the black stone pillars by numerous chains, as if they were prisoners waiting to be slaughtered. Such a scene made Lin Sun's eyes turn bloodshot, and his eyes were about to crack. He could not describe his mood at the moment. The anger that erupted like lava stimulated his whole body and made his skin tremble slightly. He dared not imagine what kind of cruel torture his son and disciple would have suffered if he had come a step later. He dared not think about it. When Lin Fan and Su Bai called out to him excitedly, Lin Sun inexplicably felt a stabbing pain in his heart. He took a deep breath, and his voice became hoarse. I'm here to take you home. This sentence seemed to be squeezed out of his chest. The roaring anger and murderous intent all over his body were almost uncontrollable. Bang! Bang! The chains that bound Lin Fan and Su Bai broke inch by inch and turned into powder. Lin Sun and Green Wood Taoist Physique rescued Lin Fan and Su Bai respectively. With the release of the power of the Great Path from his palms and fingers, the wounds on their bodies instantly healed and disappeared. However, because they had lost too much blood just now, their faces were still pale. Moreover, Ji Changyun and Ji Zhongshan had just stripped their talents. Although they had not succeeded, they had suffered great damage. Fortunately, they were fine. This was enough for Lin Sun. Lin Sun, Ji Bowen cried out, his face full of disbelief. How could it be you? At this moment, the other big shots of the Ji clan also seemed to wake up from a dream, and they all looked at Lin Sun with shock and confusion. They had expected that Ji Guizhen, Gao Yangli, and Jiangju would bring Lin Sun from the eternal true world. Who would have thought that Ji Guizhen and the others would not return? Instead, Lin Sun would sneak into their divine mountain of Phoenix Perch at night and suddenly appear in front of them. In particular, Ji Changyun and Ji Zhongshan's faces were extremely gloomy. They finally understood that the terrifying, murderous intent they had felt just now had come from Lin Sun. Moreover, Lin Sun did this not to attack them, but to scare them away, so that he could take the opportunity to rescue Lin Fan and Su Bai. Obviously, Lin Sun succeeded. However, this was the territory of the Ji clan, after all. In the face of such a shocking turn of events, no matter if it was Ji Chongyun, Ji Zhongshan, or Ji Bowen, none of them panicked. Why can't it be me? Lin Sun turned around. His bloodshot eyes were cold and frightening, and his eyebrows were full of crazy, killing intent. This was the first time he had been so angry since he had stepped onto the eternal Tao path. As he spoke, his gaze swept everyone present here, and he said word by word, "All of you must die today." Every word was like a clap of thunder, resounding through the night sky. Ji Bowen and the others revealed cold smiles and looks of pity, as though they were listening to the ravings of an idiot. This was the territory of their Ji clan. For them, Lin's arrival was indeed unexpected, but it was no different from courting death. Everyone, once we capture this fiend, the fate of our clan will change from tonight onwards. Ji Bowen's eyes burned as he spoke loudly. Boom! Ji Chongyun and Ji Zhongshan could not hold back and took the initiative to attack. They were scared away by Lin Sun before, so they couldn't keep their faces. At this moment, they all had the idea of regaining their face and couldn't wait. Huh! The white-haired and spirited Ji Chongyun waved a black wooden stick and knocked it fiercely in the air. Instantly, the air exploded open as countless dazzling lightning blades emerged densely, and they swept towards Lin Sun like a storm. Every single blade flickered with the rules of lightning, and they were ferocious and domineering. When looked at from afar, it was simply like tribulation lightning descending from the sky. Die! Ji Zhongshan, who had a fluttering willow beard, withdrew a scroll. When the scroll unfolded, it seemed like a starry sky was revealed. Countless large stars circulated within it, and they glowed brilliantly and were suffused with a might that could crush the heavens. The Star Tao diagram. Two existences at the perfection stage of the transcending principal realm attacked together, and their might was so formidable that it tore apart the inky night sky and illuminated the universe. The entire Phoenix Perch Mountain was alarmed at this moment. However, Lin Sun didn't dodge, and he charged out with a stride. Rumble. At this instant, the rage and killing intent he'd suppressed to the limit had erupted completely. His tall figure erupted with a myriad of strands of obscure glows of the Tao, and it was like an abyss that was terrifying to an unimaginable extent. As he rushed forward, the dense thunderblades seemed to be swept by a storm and exploded in the earth-shattering sound. They couldn't stop the impact of Lin Sun's power at all, like paper paste. Damn it! Ji Chongyun's face suddenly changed, and he struck the black wooden stick in his hand crazily, collapsing the void. The undulating law of lightning also roared out like the ocean. For a time, wind and thunder were raging, and the place seemed to have turned into a kingdom of lightning. Boundless destructive breath broke out, but it still seemed very unbearable. Lin Sun's figure rushed forward and directly crushed the violent thunder-lost sea, which collapsed like a tide. Almost at the same time, he grabbed the black wooden stick in Ji Chongyun's hand. As the power released from his palms and fingers spread, the eternal Tao weapon exploded with a bang. Open! Ji Chongyun screamed, and his whole body seemed to be burning. Obviously, he had displayed a forbidden secret method, and his power soared unprecedentedly. However, Lin Sun grabbed at him, and the power released from his palms and fingers was simply invincible. It forcibly grabbed Ji Chongyun's eternal Tao weapon, and the splashing light rain was still falling. Ji Chongyun's neck was already grasped by Lin Sun. How can you be so strong? Ji Chongyun was horrified, and her eyes were wide open. Everything had happened too quickly. From the moment she attacked to Lin Sun's counterattack, only a blink of an eye had passed. Her attacks had been defeated, her eternal Tao weapon had been crushed, and now, even her entire body had been captured. From the beginning to the end, she couldn't resist at all. Crack! Lin Sun, who was extremely angry, directly twisted Ji Changyun's neck, pulled out her spirit, and stuffed it into the abyssal sword cauldron. He would not let this venomous old woman die just like that. The cruel torture his son Lin Fan had suffered made Lin Sun hate this old bastard. At the same time when Lin Sun subdued Ji Changyun, his greenwood Taoist body also killed Ji Changshan. First, Ji Changshan's star chart of all heavens was grabbed by the greenwood Taoist body and crushed into powder. Then, before Ji Changshan could dodge, the greenwood Taoist body had already teleported to him and slapped him on the head. Ji Changshan's eternal Taoist body exploded like firecrackers. The splattering flesh and primordial spirit were also suppressed by the greenwood Taoist body sleeve. That scene could be said to be incomparably domineering, and it was done in one go. Strictly speaking, Ji Changyun and Ji Changshan were killed at the same time. Dong was killed at the same time. He was completely crushed and killed with a single blow. That bloody scene shocked Ji Bowen and the others, and they almost couldn't believe their eyes. Who would dare believe that two existences at the great perfection of rules transcendent could be so weak? Ji Guasian, who had arrived in the eternal world, at least knew of Lin Sun's glorious battle record of defeating all the eternal gods in the ninth heaven alone. But Ji Bowen and the others didn't know this at all. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have even known that Lin Sun had now reached the eternal Tao. The unknown was the most terrifying thing. That was why they were so shocked at this moment, and they felt a chill all over their bodies, and their hearts trembled. "Retreat!" Ji Bowen shouted. Almost at the same time, his whole body's momentum erupted, and he waved his hand to summon an antique jade cauldron, which emitted a thick and vast aura of the divine order. With the appearance of this cauldron, the divine order that shrouded the sky above Phoenix Perch Mountain was also attracted and began to be controlled by Ji Bowen to attack Lin Sun. Boom! The violent god-level order transformed into a vast expanse of blazing divine light that engulfed Lin Sun and his greenwood Taoist physique. Break! Lin Sun's eyes were red, and he looked like an angry god. With a loud shout, he suddenly punched forward. This punch released the power of the profound meaning of nirvana to the extreme, as if it was about to break through the barrier of eternity and chisel through the shackles of time and space. It had an indomitable and unparalleled momentum. Bang! An enormous rift was instantly smashed open in the vast and blazing divine light, and at the end of the rift was the force of Lin Sun's punch. It was like a ray of light that carried the might to destroy everything. Ji Bowen's expression turned grim, and he practically exerted all his strength to resist it. However, along with an explosion that shook the heavens and the earth, the jade cauldron formed from the divine order was blasted flying, and it wailed violently. On the other hand, Ji Bowen's entire body was blasted flying. His figure hadn't even stabilized himself when numerous cracks appeared on his body, and he coughed up large mouthfuls of blood. This punch had actually broken through the suppression of the divine order, and it had even heavily injured an existence at the realm of transcendence like him. Ji Bowen was astounded while his scalp went numb, and he felt like he'd gone mad. How could Lin Sun be so formidable? At this moment, a wave of miserable shrill cries resounded. "No! Ancestor, save me! A.H." The people by Ji Bowen's side had already realized that something was amiss and were fleeing into the distance. However, Lin Sun's greenwood Taoist physique caught up to them. As Lin Sun waved his sleeves, boundless sword aura rained down like a torrential rain, killing all the influential figures of the Ji clan who hadn't stepped onto the eternal path on the spot. Every single one of them seemed to have been executed by 1,000 cuts. Their flesh and blood were reduced to pieces, and they died horribly. Although these people weren't in the eternal realm, they were still influential figures of the Ji clan. They possessed the cultivation of the transcendent realm. However, now, they were mercilessly slaughtered like weeds. Their screams that were filled with terror and unwillingness were still reverberating. But there was only a patch of scarlet and horrifying blood left on the battlefield. Such a scene made Ji Bowen's eyes almost pop out of their sockets, and he was enraged. Lin Sun, I swear that I'll pull out your tendons, skin you alive, and grind your bones into ashes. He roared, and he seemed to have gone mad with rage. In just a few blinks of an eye, the two eternal realm existences, Ji Changyun and Ji Zhongshan, were killed. Even the influential figures of the clan were annihilated. Only Ji Bowen was left. How could he not be enraged? Chapter 31-35. Ji Bowen's roars echoed in the air. Lin Sun's real body had already charged forward, his bloodshot eyes filled with cold and ruthless killing intent. In an instant, the enraged Ji Bowen felt as if he had fallen into an icy cavern. He sensed great danger, and Lin Sun's killing intent was so strong that it almost drowned his mind at that moment. A terrifying presence descended, and the night was torn apart. In that instant, an indescribable pressure enveloped the world, causing the air to fall silent. Even faster than that terrifying presence was a palm print that had formed out of thin air. It looked as if it had been polished from clear glass, and it blocked in front of Ji Bowen before slamming towards Lin Sun. Boom! That palm print seethed with the blazing power of rules. It was practically the hand of the heavens, and the aura it released was so strong that it far surpassed the realm of transcending rules. However, Lin Sun did not dodge. Billions of sword auras suddenly surged out of his body and turned into a formation that clashed head-on with the glass-like palm print. Rumble! The palm and sword collided, and the area suddenly collapsed into a violent turbulence of power. The glass-like palm print burst into pieces, and Lin Sun's sword formation also dissipated. Even though he was not injured, his charging figure was still blocked for an instant, allowing Ji Bowen to take the chance to escape with his life. Lin Sun, what a man. It's only been a few years, but he has already advanced from the eternal longevity realm to the great circle of rules, the eternal realm. An awe-inspiring voice filled with shock rang out. Soon after, a tall and imposing figure appeared out of thin air. He was dressed in feathered robes and had the air of an immortal. He looked like a youth, but when his eyes opened and closed, they gave off an ancient air. Ji Guiling, an early-stage creation realm existence of the Ji clan. When he appeared, Ji Bowen instantly felt as if he had found a backer. He hissed, "Progenitor, this fiend killed Changyun and Changshan. Please take action and capture him. Don't worry, he won't be able to escape." A hint of killing intent appeared between Ji Guiling's brows. What I don't understand is why Brother Guasian hasn't returned from the eternal true world. Ji Guasian was one of the creation realm existences of the Ji clan. He had long since gone to the eternal true world to deal with Lin Sun, but now Ji Guasian had not returned, and Lin Sun had come. Most importantly, Ji Guasian was Ji Guiling's older brother. You mean him? Lin Sun raised his hand and grasped Ji Guasian's spirit, which was imprisoned and dying. His bloodshot eyes flashed with terrifying coldness. The faces of Ji Guiling and Ji Bowen changed at the same time. They couldn't believe that Ji Guasian, who was at the middle stage of creation realm, could be captured by Lin Sun. "Release my clan brother, quickly. Otherwise, you'll die for sure today." Ji Guiling was enraged. His face was gloomy as he berated sternly. Lin Sun put away Ji Guasian's spirit and said indifferently, "Do you think I'm afraid of such a threat?" His murderous intent became even more terrifying, like a turbulent ocean. "But don't worry, I won't kill Ji Guasian just like that. I'll let you taste what it feels like to be threatened." As he spoke, Lin Sun stepped forward. Boom! The heavens shook and the earth trembled. A beam of sword chi that resembled the 9 heavens, Milky Way, swept out. It was surrounded by a cryptic power of laws as it slashed towards Ji Guiling. Meanwhile, his Greenwood Taoist physique used the power of the Grand Primordium Order to launch a pincer attack with his main body. "You are courting death." Ji Guiling was enraged. He stretched out his hand and grabbed at the air. Clang! One made by the divine, the golden saber formed by order appeared in his hand, and he slashed out furiously. Golden saber, chi whistled through the air, emitting a world-shaking, murderous aura. That was the power of the creation realm. Using the divine level order as a weapon, the might released shot through the sky. A great battle broke out. Ji Guiling was furious and used his full strength. But Lin Sun was angrier than him, and he didn't show any mercy when he attacked. Rumble. The world turned upside down, and the sun and moon lost their light. Last time in the eternal true world, when Lin Sun fought against Ji Guizhen, who was in the middle stage of the creation realm, with just his own strength, Lin Sun had managed to defeat him. Not to mention that he was now using the power of his main body and the Greenwood Taoist body. In a moment, Ji Guiling was injured and coughed up blood. He was suppressed by Lin Sun's unparalleled ferocity. Ji Bowen's eyes almost popped out of their sockets, and he felt a chill run down his spine. Even if he racked his brains, he wouldn't be able to imagine how Lin Sun, an expert in the great perfection of the rules transcendent state, could be so heaven-defying, surpassing a major realm and suppressing a creation realm cultivator. Who would dare to believe this? This bastard is too arrogant. Let's attack together. But suddenly, two figures rang out. One was as heavy as iron, while the other was hoarse and ethereal. Their voices were still echoing when two godlike figures appeared out of nowhere and charged into the battlefield. One was an old man in a purple robe with a jade belt and a crown on his head. He had a delicate appearance, and the power of the rules around his body had transformed into the silvery illusion of a world. Ji Chaoyin, a late-stage creation realm cultivator. She was also the most ancient of the 4 creation realm cultivators of the Ji clan, and she had the most terrifying combat power. One was a beautiful woman dressed in a colorful dress. Her face was as calm as water, and she was as cold as ice. Tens of thousands of rays of green sword qi condensed in front of her, and the green light surged and covered the sky. Ji Haiwen, a mid-stage creation realm cultivator, and the only woman among the 4 creation realm cultivators of the Ji clan. As soon as the two appeared, they charged into the battlefield. One of them used peerless divine abilities and controlled the rules of wind, thunder, earth, and fire with boundless divine power. The other's sword intent was monstrous, and the green light was like a waterfall, wild and violent, like a peerless sword god on the eternal path. The addition of the two immediately changed the situation. Lin Sun and Greenwood Taoist physique's attacks were blocked, and they were surrounded. Other than that, there were also 8 transcending rules realm cultivators. They stood guard in all directions and sealed off all paths of retreat. Every single one of them had the power to throw the heavens into chaos. Seeing this, the patriarch Ji Bowen felt relieved. Right now, all the eternal realm cultivators of the Ji clan had come out in full force. Under such circumstances, there was no need to worry about not being able to kill Lin Sun. Ancestors, as long as we capture and kill this bastard, the fate of our clan will definitely change tonight. Ji Bowen shouted, and his voice shook the sky. The battle erupted completely. Divine radiance and the glow of the Tao raged like tidewater, and it shook the clouds to the point of collapsing while the sky cracked apart. Rumbling and rumbling resounded throughout Phoenix Perch Mountain while the heavens and the earth shook. If it wasn't for the fact that the Ji clan was covered with more than one divine order, just the torrent of energy alone would cause the world of gods to backfire, and the billions of living beings in the world would definitely be harmed. Kill, kill, kill. The 3 creation realm cultivators, Ji Guiling, Ji Chaoyin, and Ji Haiwen, were each more powerful than the last. Their bodies were filled with murderous intent, and they each unleashed their most powerful attacks. Lin Sun also suffered a great impact, and he felt the pressure that assaulted his face. But he didn't retreat. His anger and hatred caused his fighting spirit and killing intent to boil and burn. His entire body was covered in Taoist light, and sometimes it was like an abyss that could swallow the heavens, and sometimes it was like a furnace that could suppress the world. Rise. With a thought in Lin Sun's mind, the crimson fire, platinum, and yellow earth Taoist bodies whistled out, and they fought alongside Lin Sun and the Greenwood Taoist body. The abyssal sword cauldron was activated by Lin Sun as well, and each of the 4 Taoist bodies wielded a clan-guarding weapon with unfathomable might. For example, the Taihao clan's clan-guarding treasure, the Myriad God Spear, the Zhu clan's Furnace of Chaos, the One clan's Primal Chaos Seal, the Minamoto clan's Azurite Heavenly Sword, and so on. Clan-guarding treasures like these were far more powerful than ordinary eternal Taoist weapons, and every single one of them had a glorious past and inspiring accomplishments in battle. If it wasn't for that, Lin Sun wouldn't have kept them in his collection. But now all of these eternal Taoist weapons were put to use. However, even under such circumstances, he was only able to stand on equal footing with the 3 creation stage existences. It was an intense confrontation. It was impossible to defeat them in a short period of time. The reason was Ji Chaoyin. She was a late-stage creation realm cultivator, and the power she possessed was far beyond that of Ji Haowen and Ji Guiling. Just the attack against Ji Chaoyin had restrained the power of Lin Sun and his 2 Taoist bodies. One could imagine how abnormal the combat power of a late-stage creation realm cultivator was. However, Lin Sun didn't care about this at all. He needed to vent the anger and hatred in his chest. Even when he swept through the 12 eternal gods in the 9th heaven, Lin Sun had never been as angry as he was today. When he thought of Zhao Jingshuan's worried and hesitant eyes and the bloody scenes of Lin Fan and Su by being brutally tortured, his heart trembled. Kill. At this moment, Lin Sun was no different from a madman. He released all of his power, unleashing it to the extreme and unleashing it like never before. Rumble. The world seemed to have turned into chaos and completely collapsed. The torrent of the great wave of destruction surged and swept, showing a scene of doomsday. It was shocking. How can this boy be so strong? Looking at all the civilizations in the ruins of creation, how can there be such an eternal realm cultivator? How is this possible? The expressions of Ji, Bowen, and the other existences in the exceeding law realm became dull. They originally thought that with the 3 creation realm ancestors taking action, it would be easy to capture Lin Sun. But who would have thought that Lin Sun would be fighting the 3 creation realm ancestors head-on? This completely subverted their imagination and expectations. They were all stunned. They didn't know how many years they had lived, but this was the first time they had seen such a scene. They were not the only ones. Ji Chaoyin, Ji Hyphen, and Ji Guiling, who were fighting fiercely with Lin Sun, all revealed looks of shock and confusion. It should be known that with the power of the creation realm, they could easily suppress and kill eternal realm figures in the exceeding law realm. But at this moment, it didn't work in front of Lin Sun. This was undoubtedly too unbelievable. What was even more difficult for them to accept was that as the battle continued, Lin Sun's power had been growing bit by bit, and they began to feel oppressed. If this scene was seen by other eternal realm cultivators in the world, who would dare to believe it? We can't hesitate any longer. Use your trump card quickly. In the end, Ji Chaoyin couldn't hold back anymore and shouted, the killing intent in his eyes surging wildly. Lin Sun's heaven-defying combat power, which could not be measured by common sense, had made him feel a serious threat. Chapter 31-36. Just as Ji Chaoyin's voice faded away, Ji Guiling and Ji Haiwen displayed their trump cards in unison. Myriad flow, Ji Guiling shouted. The void suddenly split open, and the vast power of rules surged out. It was like the water of the 9th heaven had burst a dam, and it was about to drown the world. The vast power of rules covered the heavens and the earth. Compared to it, everything else seemed extremely small and powerless. At a speed visible to the naked eye, Ji Guiling's aura suddenly weakened after he executed this attack, and his face turned pale. Obviously, such an attack consumed a great deal of energy even for a creation realm existence like him. Mountains and rivers together, the bright moon shines alone. At the same time, a strand of a cold and indistinct voice resounded out. Ji Haowen gestured with his white hand, and it seemed as if a myriad of mountains and rivers lay across the world. A bright and clear moon alone illuminated the world, and it emanated chilly radiance that was hazy and dreamlike. The mountains and rivers were all formed from mysterious rules, especially the bright moon. It was like the incarnation of all the Tao in the world, and it was filled with a supreme charm that illuminated the ages. Such a scene was so beautiful that it made one's heart tremble, and it was also unimaginably terrifying. Even looking at it from afar, Ji Bowen and the others who had exceeded the realm of rules felt a chill in their hearts, and they felt suffocated and helpless. Lin Sun's bloodshot eyes shone with a crazy luster. The next moment, the Gate of Exile suddenly appeared, covering the world. The huge gate that covered an area of tens of thousands of meters was like a bloody mouth that could swallow the sky. The Gate of Exile, a forbidden magic, was released by Lin Sun, who had reached the perfection of the realm of rules. Its power was already different from before. Boom! The mighty torrent of laws released by Ji Guiling was extremely terrifying, but at this moment, it was like 10,000 streams returning to the sea, completely swallowed by the door of exile. How is this possible? Ji Guiling shouted. His brows were full of shock. This was his trump card, and it consumed more than half of his cultivation. At the same time, Ji Haiwen also let out a cry of disbelief. The world of mountains, rivers, and moons was violently crushed like a piece of paper, vanishing into the door of exile. The terrifying power of the laws contained within it seemed so weak. Boom! Heaven and earth rumbled. The door of exile moved horizontally, simply swallowing everything. What supreme divine abilities! What power of laws! Everything was crushed and swallowed like a whirlwind. Such a scene shocked Ji Bowen and the others to the point their scalps went numb, and their eyeballs almost fell out. Lin Sun's 4 Taoist bodies had already been mobilized. Green wood and red fire Taoist bodies worked together to deal with Ji Guiling, while white gold and yellow earth Taoist bodies worked together to deal with Ji Han. On the other hand, Lin Sun's main body was doing his best to restrain Ji Chaoying's attacks. Rumble the battle was getting more and more terrifying. In the blink of an eye, Ji Guiling's figure was suppressed by green wood and the scarlet flame Taoist body. He had nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. He was directly swallowed by the door of exile. No! Ji Guiling roared angrily, his eyes about to split open. He struggled madly, but to no avail. His figure quickly disappeared into the depths of the door of exile. An early-stage creator was exiled just like that, courting death. Ji Chaoying was enraged. Her eyes were cold and terrifying. She used her trump card. An incomparably dazzling sword light appeared between her fingers and slashed out angrily. The dangerous aura caused Lin Sun's main body to shiver, but he did not retreat. Instead, he gritted his teeth and used all his strength to resist. Clang! Even the abyssal sword cauldron could not withstand the attack and was sent flying. Then, the sword chi pressed down on Lin Sun. Even though Lin Sun had used all his strength to resist, he was still injured. His figure staggered back a few steps in the void, and he could not help but cough out a mouthful of blood. The sword chi was too terrifying. It tore a bloody sore mark on his chest and almost cut open his stomach. This was the power of the late-stage creator. Even though Lin Sun's main body possessed heaven-defying strength, it was inevitable that he would be injured in this life and death battle. But no matter what, Ji Chaoying's furious sword was still blocked by his main body. At the same time, Ji Han's figure was surrounded and attacked by the 4 Taoist bodies. She suffered an unbearable blow. Then, her heavily injured figure was swallowed by the door of exile, and she followed in Ji Guiling's footsteps. Everything had happened too quickly. Even a mid-stage creator like Ji Han could not withstand the all-out attack of the 4 Taoist bodies. Of course, Lin Sun's main body had paid a price for this. He had been injured by the sword light, but fortunately, it was not serious. Ji Bowen and the others were extremely shocked and furious. The successive deaths had caused their faces to turn ashen and their hands and feet to turn cold. Their Ji clan had only been able to produce 4 creation-level experts after countless years of history and accumulation. But first, Ji Guasian had met with disaster in the eternal true world. Then, Ji Guiling and Ji Han had died one after another. One could imagine how heavy the blow was. In fact, it had shaken their foundations. It was enough to cause the Ji clan's power to plummet. How could this be? How could this be? Why? Ji Bowen and the others were about to go crazy. You deserve to die. Ji Chaoyin was completely enraged as well. She seemed to have gone mad. Boom! His robes fluttered, and his power erupted like a volcano. Dazzling eternal light of the Tao radiated from him, making him look like an enraged overlord. Especially the space between his brows. A bloody slit had actually silently split open, and then a wisp of gorgeous and scarlet red sword light gradually emerged from this bloody slit. With every inch the sword light appeared, the world would tremble, and Ji Chaoyin's power would increase by a notch. When this sword light was completely revealed, it was an entire 7 inches long, devilishly scarlet red, and its edge was crystalline and dazzling. It seemed as if it was constructed from a strand of scarlet red blood of the gods, and the aura it emitted was so terrifying that it dyed the heavens and the earth a horrifying red color. Rumble. The entire Phoenix perched divine mountain violently trembled at this moment. Visible to the naked eye, the power of laws turned into streaks of light that shot out from different regions of the mountain and frantically gathered towards the 7-inch sword light, causing the power of the sword light to soar. Phoenix perched divine sword. In an instant, Ji Bowen and the others couldn't help but reveal looks of shock. This was the supreme divine ability of their Ji clan, a forbidden, peerless divine ability. It was capable of summoning all of the various types of edictal energy that had been suppressing Phoenix perched divine mountain. And then, along with the user's entire strength and cultivation, all of it would be gathered into a single streak of sword light. Such might could easily annihilate any creation realm expert, and only boundless realm experts would be able to resist it. Of course, it was utterly impossible for a boundless realm expert to be born in the various eras of the ruins of creation. Thus, this forbidden divine ability could be said to be the ultimate divine ability of the Ji clan, and it could be used to awe the world. But now, this divine ability had been executed by Ji Chaoyin, who was furious to the extreme. At this moment, Lin Sun's heart was extremely cold. He immediately retreated and stayed on guard from afar, and he calmed down from his resentful state. If I use all my strength to block it, I might be able to block it, but I'll definitely suffer heavy injuries. If that's the case, Ji Bowen and the other 8 Transcendents would be able to kill me. Lin Sun realized the severity of the situation. Without hesitation, he gathered the 4 Taoist bodies to guard his body, and at the same time, he summoned Xia Ji from the Ark of Eternity. Xia Ji, I'll deal with this old thing. If I can't hold on, you'll lead me out of this place. Lin Sun's thoughts echoed in Xia Ji's mind. Let me do it. Xia Ji took a step forward and actually charged towards the distant Ji Chaoyin. She was so fast that Lin Sun couldn't stop her. Get back here. Lin Sun's expression changed, and he chased after her. Go. At this moment, Ji Chaoyin spat out a cold voice from her lips. Swish. The scarlet 7-inch sword light, which had been accumulating power for a long time, swept out and slashed in the void. The world instantly fell into a scene of destruction, as if it couldn't withstand the power of this sword. And as Ji Chaoyin's sword slashed out, an indescribable killing aura manifested the terrifying scene of doomsday and the collapse of the heavens. This was the ultimate Phoenix sword, a supreme, forbidden divine ability so powerful that even creation realm cultivators felt despair. Dense and obscure divine chains that seemed like destiny appeared on Xia Ji's graceful figure, and they were suffused with a supreme, mysterious aura. Her body glowed as if she was burning her life. In her left hand, a vast expanse of white light of time surged out, and in her right hand, obscure and mysterious power of karma rose. When the ultimate Phoenix sword slashed down, Xia Ji suddenly put her hands together in front of her, and she formed a mysterious hand seal. And the light of time and the power of karma fused in the hand seal, and they were released with a bang. At this moment, the the world suddenly fell silent, and an unbelievable scene appeared. Time flowed, and when karma interweaved like a river, the starry sky seemed to have fallen into a strange reincarnation, and everything showed a scene of withering, sinking, and being annihilated. Under the impact of this supreme power, the phenomenon in the world collapsed and disappeared like bubbles, and the 7-inch sword light that slashed down suddenly stopped in front of Xia Ji, and it buzzed and trembled violently. Then it exploded with a bang. The ultimate phoenix sword, such a supreme, taboo divine ability, had actually been dealt with. Lin Sun, who chased up to Xia Ji, couldn't help but be stunned at this moment. Boom! As Xia Ji's hand seal, which was combined with the profound meaning of time and cause and effect, the world turned upside down, and everything seemed to fall into a kind of death cycle. Ji Chaoyin only felt that there was a vast expanse of whiteness in front of him. An unspeakable fear surged in his body and mind. The power of time and fate, like a torrent, wrapped his body and mind, and rushed into the unknown abyss of time and space. Then, under everyone's gaze, Ji Chaoyin, who was at the late stage of creation realm, was like a dead tree deprived of vitality. His spirit and the power of the Great Way all disappeared in the blink of an eye, and countless fine cracks appeared on his body like dense cobwebs. Bang! In the end, his body was completely unable to hold on any longer, and it rustled as it transformed into an expanse of ash that seemed like gray and hazy powder that drifted into the surroundings and vanished completely. There was a dead silence. Lin Sun was also shocked by this scene. At this moment, Xia Ji's clear and melodious voice sounded in his ears. This is the calamity of dust, the most powerful magic power I can master at present. 3 consecutive updates. Have a good weekend, everyone. Chapter 31-37. Between heaven and earth, the destructive torrent of power was still reverberating. But all the people in the field were silent. Ji Bowen and the other 8 existences in the realm of rules were completely stunned, as if struck by lightning. Ji Chaoyin, the famous late stage of creation in the ruins of fate, the only antique of the Ji family who had reached the late stage of creation, had been turned into a handful of ashes. All this happened in the blink of an eye. They had thought that with the supreme taboo Phoenix Absolute Sword, they could easily kill the existences in the realm of creation. Wouldn't it be a piece of cake to kill Lin Sun, a figure in the realm of rules? But the reality slapped them hard in the face. The appearance of Xia Ji, with only one blow, defeated the Phoenix Absolute Sword and killed Ji Chaoyin, a late stage of creation, into ashes. All of this caused Ji Bowen and the others to feel extremely terrified, and they felt like their guts were being torn apart. Mortal calamity. Lin Sun couldn't help but gasp. This kind of taboo magic, which combined the 2 supreme ways of time and cause and effect, was so horrible that even he was shocked. Lin Sun, it's up to you now. Xia Ji turned her head and looked at Lin Sun with her clear eyes. Then, her slender figure suddenly fell down softly. Lin Sun held her in his arms and broke out in a cold sweat. When he was sure that Xia Ji had just exhausted all her power and fell into a deep sleep, he breathed a sigh of relief. There was no doubt that Xia Ji had exhausted all her power to display the magical power of mortal calamity, so that she directly fell into a deep sleep. After carefully placing Xia Ji in the eternal boat, Lin Sun looked at Ji Bowen and the others in the distance. Ji Chaoyin, the biggest threat, had been eliminated by Xia Ji. Although Ji Bowen and the others were numerous, they were no longer a threat. Yongqing, you leave first and take your clansmen away. I'll hold Lin Sun with the others. Ji Bowen gave the order in a deep voice, his face full of determination. That night, they had come to deprive Lin Fan and Su Bai of their talent. But no one expected that Lin Sun's sudden appearance would make the situation develop to such a point. First, Ji Changyun and Ji Zhongshan, 2 existences in the realm of rules, were slaughtered along with some other big shots. Following that, Ji Guiling, Ji Haowen, and Ji Chaoyin, the 3 creator realm cultivators, fell one after another. It was to the point that at this moment, G. Bowen realized that, not to mention changing the fate of his clan, it was extremely likely that his G clan would be in danger of being annihilated tonight. The blow from all of this was too great, and even a great figure like G. Bowen, who was accustomed to experiencing great storms, couldn't help but feel despair in his heart. Patriarch Ji Yongqing's eyes were red, his expression sorrowful. "Quick!" Ji Bowen roared. "This is the territory of your Ji clan. Where else can we run to?" Lin Sun said coldly in the distance. "Buzz." At this moment, Lin Sun cast the seal of time. The dreamy light of time intertwined and turned into a seal that covered the sky and the sun. This was the first time Lin Sun had used the seal of time since he had stepped onto the eternal path of the Tao. Unlike before, the restrictions condensed by the seal of time were like a curtain that covered the sky. Compared to the power of the seal of time that Divine Emperor Eternal Night had set up outside the flowing light forbidden area. Although it was still a bit inferior, it was not much weaker. The supreme forbidden power of the Divine Emperor Eternal Night, the seal of time. In an instant, G. Bowen recognized it, and his heart sank to the bottom. The faces of the other Eternal Realm experts of the G clan also became extremely unsightly. A long time ago, the Divine Emperor Eternal Night once walked in the era of the gods. He was just one person, but he was invincible and covered the sky. He was a hero that even the Eternal Realm experts could only bow their heads. Even when the Divine Emperor Eternal Night was seriously injured by the Great Silence Calamity, in the countless years after he hid in the flowing light forbidden area, no one in the vast ruins of fortune was able to break into the flowing light forbidden area. The reason lay in the seal of time that covered the flowing light forbidden domain. But now, such a forbidden power was cast by Lin Sun, and it covered the whole world. This was tantamount to trapping all the leaders of the G clan in the territory of the G clan, like beasts in a cage. Now, it's time to settle the grievances between us. Lin Sun swallowed an incomparably wonderful divine medicine, and in the blink of an eye, his exhausted physical strength was restored. After sweeping through the 12 eternal god clans of the ninth heaven, Lin Sun had plundered a lot of such peerless divine medicines. "Guys, let's fight him to the death," G. Bowen roared. Under the stimulation of being at the end of the road, their fighting spirit was stimulated, and all of them were ready to fight to the death. "Kill!" The other great figures shouted, and without hesitation, each took out their eternal Tao soldiers and launched their supreme divine powers towards Lin Sun. The divine power was vast, and the eternal Tao light raged between heaven and earth, but couldn't break through the power of the seal of time. But at this time, no one cared about this. They seemed to have gone crazy, and all of them desperately rushed forward. A total of 9 eternal existences in the transcendent realm risked their lives. How terrifying would that scene be? Then, some were like the gods of fire, controlling the divine flames, burning the heavens and destroying the earth. Some were holding large halberds, wearing black armor, like a god of war descending to the world. Some roared, the wind rose, the clouds surged, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled, releasing all kinds of supreme divine powers that could destroy the world. And some, all kinds of powerful and terrible attacks gathered together, all covering Lin Sun. Just the scene of destruction alone made people feel desperate. Ants trying to shake a tree. Lin Sun's deep black eyes were filled with a cold disdain. In the next moment, he suddenly stomped his foot on the ground and charged forward. The 4 Tao bodies stood on guard around his main body, and they each activated the eternal Tao weapons in their hands. They were like peerlessly dazzling and peerlessly sharp lights that stabbed forcefully into the vast torrent of energy. Boom! Visible to the naked eye, the torrent of power formed by all kinds of supreme divine powers and Tao soldiers was torn straight, leaving a huge crack. No one knew how many supreme divine powers collapsed like bubbles. No one knew how many eternal Tao soldiers exploded in the earth-shattering collision. In the blink of an eye, the offensive of G. Bowen and others was easily broken, and Lin Sun and his doppelganger had already approached them. It was too fast and too domineering. It was no different from directly crushing them. "Oh no, hide!" Ji Bowen and others all changed their expressions when they heard the scream. But it was obviously a step too late. Lin Sun and the four Tao bodies suddenly separated, each staring at an opponent and attacking fiercely. Bang! When a gray-haired old man dodged, his figure was directly hit by the abyssal sword cauldron, and his whole body was like a straw under a mountain, unable to struggle. In other directions, the four doppelgangers of Greenwood, Chihua, Platinum, and Yellow Earth also showed an absolutely invincible posture, suppressing their opponents one by one. That scene was no different from a sheep entering a tiger's flock. So what if Lin Sun was in the transcendent realm? Even those in the early and middle stages of creation realm could be killed by Lin Sun, let alone these people in the same realm. In the eyes of Lin Sun, these opponents might have already set foot on the eternal Tao. The power controlled by him was enough to make hundreds of millions of people in the world look up to him. But for him, they were no different from chickens and dogs. In the blink of an eye, 5 people were suppressed. Such a scene made Ji Bowen and others, who had already decided to fight to the death, feel a sense of collapse. How could they fight like this? With the power they possessed, it was completely insufficient. If before they still had the resolute fighting spirit to perish together with Lin Sun. But after witnessing such a scene, even this fighting spirit began to waver. Lin Sun didn't waste any time at all. His original body and doppelganger rushed out, and in just a few breaths, they suppressed the remaining 4 people, including Ji Bowen, one by one. From the beginning to the end of the battle, it was only a moment. From the beginning to the end, Lin Sun showed an irresistible and invincible posture, and no one could resist the killing from him at all. How could this be? How could this be? Ji Bowen, who was suppressed and kneeling on the ground, lost his soul, and his face was ashen. Everything that happened tonight was a huge blow to him. At this moment, his mind was blank, and he was at a loss as to what to do. There is no good thing in this world that can be obtained without paying a price. Do you really think that you can change the fate of your clan by working for the culprit behind the calamity of the era? Lin Sun's eyes were cold as he looked down at Ji Bowen, and he didn't hide his sarcasm at all. Now, you see, just because you work for the culprit behind the scenes, your entire G clan will be removed from the world. This is the price you have to pay. No, it can't be. My G clan has survived the calamity of the era, and has survived for tens of thousands of years to this day. How could it be destroyed? It absolutely can't be. It can't be. Ji Bowen roared as if he had gone mad. Not only your G clan, but also the Hai Sun clan and the Jiang clan can't escape. After saying that, Lin Sun directly grabbed Ji Bowen and the other suppressed big shots of the G clan and pressed them into the abyssal sword cauldron. At this point, all the figures of the G clan who had stepped into the eternal realm had been captured in one fell swoop. But Lin Sun didn't care about this. With a wave of his sleeve, Lin Fan and Su Bai's figures appeared out of thin air. The wounds on both of them had healed, but Lin Sun was worried that their talent power had been damaged. This was what Lin Sun cared about the most. Stand still and don't move. Before Lin Fan and Su Bai could react, Lin Sun's divine senses had already penetrated into their bodies and began to carefully sense and investigate. Lin Fan and Su Bai looked at each other and could not help but look around. Between the mountains and rivers, the breath of destruction was still pervading, and everywhere was a scene of withering and dilapidation. The strong smell of blood and killing lingered in the void, making the 2 young people who had not yet set foot on the path of immortality feel a chill all over their bodies. "Father, are they all dead?" Lin Fan could not help but ask. Su Bai also looked at his master. This was the first time he had seen Lin Sun since they parted in Chaotian City in the vast Thousand Battles domain. He was both excited and ashamed in his heart. In the final analysis, it was because he was too weak that he was coerced by the enemy as a hostage and caused such a big disaster for his master. "Well, don't worry. I'll take you away later." Lin Sun responded absent-mindedly, still concentrating on investigating and sensing the talent power of Lin Fan and Su Bai, not daring to make the slightest negligence. Those unimaginably powerful enemies were really all dead. Indescribable shock and excitement surged in Lin Sun and Su Bai's hearts. They felt that everything they had experienced today was like a dream. I'll send you a chapter first. There will be 2 more in the evening. Chapter 31-38. After a long time, Lin Sun retracted his divine senses, feeling much more relaxed. Lin Fan and Su Bai's talents had not been completely stripped away, but they had suffered a certain degree of impact, which would inevitably affect their path. If it were anyone else, they would be doomed to be helpless. However, this problem could be easily solved by the power of nirvana. They only needed to reshape their talents with the power of the profound meaning of nirvana. Lin Sun told Lin Fan and Su Bai about this, and they relaxed and became happy. "Father, I made you worry this time." A hint of embarrassment appeared on Lin Fan's handsome face. Lin Sun said in a gentle voice, "When I was young and cultivating alone, I also received help from many seniors. This is nothing. After experiencing this, I believe you have also experienced how powerful the eternal realm is. In the future, just cultivate well." Lin Fan and Su Bai nodded in unison. "Father, where are we?" Lin Fan asked. After he and Su Bai were captured in the eternal true world, they had been in a coma. They had only just woken up tonight and did not know anything at all. The ruins of creation in the Ji clan of the era of the gods. Lin Sun casually told the ins and outs of the matter. In the end, their ultimate goal was to deal with me, but you 2 little guys were implicated. Master, I've always remembered your words. You have to bear the corresponding responsibilities and risks to enjoy the benefits. This is nothing at all. Don't blame yourself. Su Bai, who had been silent, could not help but speak up at this moment. Senior brother Su Bai is right. Lin Fan echoed with a smile. Lin Sun looked at the 2 of them and could not help but think of himself and Yun Qingbai when they were young. One had the talent of devouring abyss, and the other was born with sword bone. The difference was that the relationship between them was not that of an enemy. The past was like smoke. With Lin Sun's current identity and cultivation, looking at the grievances between him and Yun Qingbai, he only felt regret and sympathy for this person. How cruel it was to have one's own fate. Fanner, Su Bai, now that I've captured all the Eternal Realm characters of the Ji clan, what do you think I should do with the other members of the Ji clan next? Lin Sun suddenly asked. Lin Fan and Su Bai were stunned, realizing that Lin Sun wanted to test their mentality on this matter. Father, the main culprit has been eliminated. The others are all innocent. It's better to let them go. After a moment of silence, Lin Fan said. Lin Sun did not comment and looked at Su Bai. What will you do? Su Bai looked calm and said, Today's matter is settled by my master, so it should be up to him to make a decision, but I will definitely come here again in the future to wash away today's shame. Lin Sun turned his gaze towards Lin Fan. If we do as you say, in the future, those surviving members of the Ji clan come to take revenge on our Lin clan, what should we do? Lin Fan didn't give it any thought before he said, so long as I become stronger than them, then they won't have any chance to take revenge at all. Not to mention that we cultivators spend our entire lives fighting and slaughtering, so it's unavoidable for us to make many enemies. Could it be that we would be afraid of their revenge? After pausing for a moment, Lin Fan said with determination in his eyes, The existence of enemies will only force me to keep moving forward and become stronger. Lin finally smiled and said with relief, You have a kind heart, but after all, you lack experience and don't understand the dangers of the world. Just like today with my ability, it is enough to sweep through the Ji dynasty. Those eternal realm figures of the Ji clan, but why do they still dare to attack you? First, they are confident that they can capture me, and second, they have more powerful people behind them to support them. Speaking of this, Lin Sun looked serious. This also means that you may become extremely powerful in the future, but what if your children and relatives are also threatened by the enemy? Lin Fan was suddenly stunned and fell into deep thought. At this time, Lin Sun looked at Su Bai and said, Your decision is very good. Get up where you fall. Remember, Don't take me, your master, too seriously in the future. My decision can't replace your will. My master said that a disciple doesn't have to be inferior to a master, but in my opinion, a disciple can be inferior to a master as long as he sticks to his state of mind and seeks his own path. Subai trembled and saluted solemnly. Disciple has learned. Lin Sun patted him on the shoulder. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. It will affect your heart to seek the Tao and become a burden instead. Subai nodded. The shackles of obsession in his heart seemed to have been broken, and his whole person became relaxed. From the time he worshipped Lin Sun as his master, he had set catching up with him as his goal. He was afraid that he would disappoint his master if he went too slowly. Therefore, over the years, he had treated himself with an extremely harsh attitude. No matter what he did, he was thinking about how to make himself stronger and how to not let his master Lin Sun down. As a result, he had unknowingly brought great pressure and burden to himself. There was no other way. His master was too powerful, and he could not catch up with him even if he tried his best. On the contrary, the gap between them continued to widen. At this time, Lin Sun's words were not the essence of the Great Way. They were very simple and casual, but for Subai, they completely opened the knot in his heart, which was no less than a sharp warning and enlightening. When the problem of the Ji clan is solved, I will take you to an interesting place. With a wave of his sleeve, Lin Sun removed the seal of time and took Lin Fan and Subai to the distance. A quarter of an hour later, the three kinds of divine-level power covering the sky above the Ji clan, the phoenix-perched divine mountain, and the wealth that belonged to the Ji clan accumulated over countless years were all taken away by Lin Sun. The Ji clan also paid the price. All the immortal-level characters were killed, and the emperors were crippled one by one. This was the same fate as the eternal gods in the ninth heaven. This was Lin Sun's attitude and approach. All of this was seen by Lin Fan and Subai, and both had different feelings and thoughts in their hearts. In this regard, Lin Sun did not ask any more questions. He did not expect his son and disciple to have the same attitude and approach as him. As long as they could learn something from this incident, it was enough. The night was deep. Lin Sun took Lin Fan and Subai and left the era of the gods that night, heading in the direction of the divine city of fortune. When he became the lord of the divine city of fortune, he was only at the heavenly longevity realm. Although he could control and use the power of the rules in the city, he could not comprehend its true meaning. But now it was different. He was already in existence at the great perfection realm, enough to comprehend the true mystery of the rules of the divine city of fortune. Back then, Chun Linkong also said that as the lord of the divine city of fortune, as long as Lin Sun reached the eternal Tao, he could take away the river diagram that guarded the sky above the divine city of fortune. This was a treasure left behind by Chun Linkong's grandfather, Chun Shi. At dawn, the news of the destruction of the Ji clan spread like the wind. It spread like wildfire. The entire Great Zhou region was shaken, and endless waves were set off. The Ji clan, a god race that could be ranked in the top 3 in the ruins of creation, had actually been annihilated in a single night. Who wouldn't be shocked when such news spread out? Who did this? They escaped the destruction of the era, but they couldn't escape the attack of a single night. The mighty Ji clan has fallen just like that. This is going to change the world. The news continued to spread, and everywhere it reached, it would cause a huge uproar. Countless voices of shock and astonishment would resound. From this, it could be seen how great the shock brought to people when such a behemoth like the Ji clan fell. In the midst of the discussion, a group of people arrived at the place where the divine mountain of Phoenix Perch was originally located. However, the divine mountain of Phoenix Perch had long been refined and taken away, so it seemed empty and desolate. It's really a disaster. The faces of this group of people all changed. They came from the Gaoyang clan and the Jiang clan respectively, and they were led by 2 existences in the creation realm. One was called Gao Yanghuai. He was dressed in a black robe and had black hair. He was thin, but he looked as handsome as a young man. The other one was called Jiang Tao. He wore a black battle robe, and his hair was like a halberd. His eyes were cold and sharp. At this moment, the two existences in the creation realm were also stunned and shocked. This time, they came to discuss how to divide the fortune of Lin Sun after capturing him. Who would have thought that when they arrived, it would be such a scene? For a moment, everyone was silent, and their expressions were uncertain. The atmosphere was extremely depressing. "There is a stone tablet there," suddenly Gao Yanghuai said, and his eyes were fixed on the land in the distance. There were broken walls and ruins, and a stone tablet stood like a sword. On the stone tablet, a line of simple and natural handwriting was engraved. Jiang Tao, who also found the stone tablet, read it casually. "Within a month, I will wait for you in the divine city of fortune. I will take revenge on you if you have any grievances. If you don't come, I will pay a visit in person a month later." Everyone's eyes were fixed. It's Lin Sun. It's really him. These big shots from the two clans all showed an expression of "I knew it." But the next moment, a storm arose in their hearts. The whole Ji clan had 4 creation realm and 12 exceeding rules realm. It was so powerful that it was no weaker than the Gaoyang clan and the Jiang clan. But in one night, it was destroyed by Lin Sun. How could they not be shocked? It's been less than 100 years. How could this boy become so powerful? Someone said in a trembling voice. The expressions of the others were also very ugly. Their understanding of Lin Sun was still at the time when he left the divine city of fortune. At that time, Lin Sun was only in the immortal realm of heaven longevity. But now, everything that happened in the Ji clan undoubtedly proved that Lin Sun already had the terrifying power to kill existences in the creation realm. Moreover, the Ji clan was destroyed in one night. If it was the Gaoyang clan or the Jiang clan, would they be able to withstand Lin Sun's attack? Just thinking about it made their hearts palpitate, and it was difficult for them to calm down. What should we do? Soon, everyone's eyes turned to the 2 creation realm existences, Gao Yanghuai and Jiang Tao. Chapter 31-39. What should they do? This was undoubtedly a tricky problem. Gao Yanghuai and Jiang Tao looked at each other and couldn't help frowning. With the example of the destruction of the Ji clan, how could they dare to underestimate Lin Sun? In fact, they even had the faint idea of retreating in their hearts. Of all people to provoke, why did they have to provoke a fierce existence who had the power to destroy an entire clan? But the handwriting on the stone tablet made the 2 existences in the creation realm realize that even if they chose to retreat, they would still be visited by Lin Sun a month later. At that time, the consequences would be serious. Our action this time is under the will of the supreme ruler behind the era calamity. We can't give up halfway. After a while, Gao Yanghuai suddenly took a deep breath, and his eyes were filled with determination. What's more, Lin Sun has already declared war. If we retreat, won't we be a joke to the world? His words were high-sounding, but everyone knew that Gao Yanghuai's decision was really a last resort. Of course, no one would expose this, because they all knew that they really couldn't back down. That's right, we can't just let it go like this. Although Lin Sun's strength is strong enough to annihilate the Ji clan, don't forget that there are hundreds of civilizations in the ruins of fortune. Just the civilizations that have figures at the eternal realm are as many as 33. If we join forces, it's not impossible to annihilate Lin Sun. Jiang Tao also said in a low voice. Everyone was stunned at first, and then their eyes lit up. Old Ginger was really spicier. If they only relied on the strength of the Hai Sun clan and the Jiang clan to deal with Lin Sun, they were bound to suffer heavy casualties. But if they joined forces with other forces, the gathered power would not only become extremely terrifying, but the casualties would also be greatly reduced. Moreover, with the status and influence of the Hai Sun clan and the Jiang clan, it would be easy for them to join forces with the eternal realm figures of all the major clans of the world. What Brother Jiang said is exactly what I think. Gao Yanghuai was in high spirits and said, "Don't forget that this is the ruins of fate, which is covered with the rule power of the supreme ruler behind the era calamity. And we are acting under the order of the supreme ruler. I don't believe that the supreme ruler will tolerate Lin Sun's arrogance." His words were powerful and sonorous. Jiang Tao's eyes flickered, and he couldn't help but take another glance at Gao Yanghuai before he said, Taoist brother's words have awoken me from my dreams. In my opinion, there's no time to lose, and we should take action immediately. There was a hint of excitement in his voice. All right, Gao Yanghuai nodded. Immediately, both of them led their clansmen back to their respective clans and started to take action. Just 3 days later, all the epics in the ruins of fortune were stirred. The Hai Sun clan and the Jiang clan united and issued an edict to the world that they would go to the divine ruins to kill Lin Sun in 10 days. When this news came out, the whole world was shocked. The Yin clan, Liangqiu clan, and Ying clan have all declared that they will fully support the operation of the two god clans. The Divine Race's Pu clan has also announced that they will arrive at the Fortune Divine City in 10 days. The Chu clan of the God clan. For a time, all the god clans in the world expressed that they would dispatch the eternal realm existences of their clans to act together with the Hai Sun clan and the Jiang clan, causing a great uproar in the civilizations of the various epochs. The world was in an uproar. Lin, who could have imagined that his return after so many years would cause such a great commotion? It is said that he destroyed the Ji clan of the God clan overnight and declared war on the Hai Sun clan and the Jiang clan. It is precisely this matter that completely infuriated all the God clans in the world and made him the target of public criticism. I have to say that this Lin Sun is indeed a ruthless person. How can those God clans not be afraid of him when he is so powerful? The world is going to be in chaos. All kinds of discussions sounded continuously. There were hundreds of epics in the entire ruins of fortune, but in just 3 days, they were all alarmed by this matter. And Lin Sun's name resounded throughout the world in these 3 days, and was known by the cultivators of various epics. Lin Sun has the power to overturn the Ji clan. His combat strength is definitely enough to kill a creation realm existence. As everyone knows, he has already mastered the secrets of the Divine City of Fortune and became the master of the Divine City of Fortune. Under such circumstances, even if all the God clans join forces to deal with him, I'm afraid they will have to pay a price. It's useless to talk about this now. In 10 days, we will know the result. Back to 3 days ago, Lin Sun led Lin Fan and Su by across the starry sky, and they finally arrived at the Divine City of Fortune after half a day. What a magnificent city! When he saw the Divine City of Fortune standing in the starry sky from afar, Lin Fan could not help but exclaim in surprise. The majesty of the city was absolutely rare in the world, and even the stars seemed extraordinarily small in front of the city. A strange light appeared in Su Bai's eyes. On the way here, he and Lin Fan had already learned about the origins of the Divine City of Fortune from Lin Sun, but when they saw it with their own eyes, they felt completely different. Lin Sun's gaze looked towards the distant heights of the Divine City of Fortune. There was a chaotic and obscure sky covering it, and when he looked carefully, he could vaguely see a mysterious treasure floating in it. It was shaped like a dark tortoise shell. That was the river diagram. It was the supreme treasure left behind by Chun Linkong's grandfather. It was precisely because of the protection of this treasure that as long as one confirmed the Tao and transcended the tribulation in this city, one would not have to worry about being attacked by the great silence, lifeless tribulation. Of course, the power of the rules in this city would suppress the power of all cultivators. Once an Eternal Realm expert approached, he would be bombarded and kept out. Even an Eternal Realm expert could only enter and exit the Divine City of Fortune by suppressing his cultivation to the level of Zhu Xian Emperor Ancestor. All of this meant that unless Lin Sun, the owner of this city, allowed it, other Eternal Realm existences could not avoid the killing of the great silence, lifeless tribulation in the city. Back then, after Lin Sun left, many sages of the ancient Battle Alliance, such as Wu Yang and Xing Jia, stayed in the city. One reason was to avoid the attack of the great silence, lifeless tribulation, and the other was to comprehend the power of the origin of creation. In this way, they could confirm their Tao and break through the realm in the city. Let's go. Lin Sun led Lin Fan and Su-bai into the city. As the owner of this city, he would naturally not be suppressed by the power of the rules in this city. When Lin Sun's figure appeared in the city, the scenes of the various areas of this huge divine city were also presented in his heart. At this moment, he clearly felt the power of the rules that belonged to this city. It was like shapeless air that existed everywhere and covered every inch of the city. It was profound, unfathomable, and filled with inconceivable profundities. When Lin Sun was still in the heavenly longevity realm, he could sense this power of rules, but he could not recognize or comprehend it at all. But it was different now. With a thought, all kinds of magical auras of the Great Path rushed into his heart like a tide, making him have the urge to immediately meditate and cultivate. But in the end, he resisted. As soon as he returned, Lin Sun planned to meet those old friends first. So they're cultivating in the depths of the Creation Star Dome. Soon, Lin Sun captured the auras of Battle Emperor Wuyong and Sacred Buddha Xingjia. He immediately teleported with Lin Fan and Su-bai. Not long after, they arrived at the place where the Creation Star Dome was located. This was an extremely vast plain. Not a single blade of grass grew, and the ground was hard, paved with a layer of hard black divine stones. On the other hand, the sky was densely dotted with dazzling and bright stars. Every single star revealed a different aura of the Grand Tao, and they floated there silently like numerous sky lanterns that emanated completely different divine radiance of the Grand Tao and suffused this vast expanse of the heavens and the earth. This Creation Star Dome was created by Chun Shi, the grandfather of Chun Linkong. It adopted the cultivation system of hundreds of eras in this star dome, unreservedly for future generations to observe and comprehend. In the past, Lin Sun realized the ultimate mystery of the Creation Star Dome here, and thus became the master of the Creation Divine City. Just like in the past, in this area where the Creation Star Dome was located, many figures were sitting cross-legged and meditating, all comprehending the cultivation power in the Creation Star Dome. Some frowned and meditated, some sat motionless, some were beaming with joy, and some were in a daze when they saw this scene. Lin Fan and Su-bai could not help but feel curious. Seeing this, Lin Sun immediately said, "You can meditate here and experience the cultivation systems of different eras. This will be beneficial to your future cultivation." Lin Fan and Su-bai agreed without hesitation. Lin Sun, on the other hand, went straight to the depths of this area. The deeper they went, the fewer people there were. In the end, there were only over 20 figures sitting cross-legged in the vast world by themselves. When Lin Sun arrived, these figures all sensed him and opened their eyes one after another. "Everyone, look who's here. Haha, no wonder I'm so restless today. It turns out that my little friend is here. Lin Sun, why did you return at this time?" For a time, all kinds of voices sounded. These figures got up one after another and greeted him with a smile. They were led by War Emperor Wuyong, Xingjia Holy Buddha, and Dragon Elephant War Emperor. They all looked surprised and happy. "Greetings, seniors." Lin Sun also smiled and saluted them. He was naturally very happy to meet them again after a long time. "Hey, you've achieved the Eternal Tao?" Wuyong could see the difference in Lin Sun's aura at a glance, and could not help showing a strange expression. Hearing this, the other old monsters also reacted and were stunned for a moment, feeling a little incredulous. They clearly remembered that when Lin Sun left the Creation Divine City, he was only at the Longevity Realm. But now, in less than 100 years, Lin Sun had achieved the Eternal Tao. This speed of promotion shocked these old guys, and they all had different expressions. "Do you want to sit down and tell us what you've experienced all these years and how you achieved the Eternal Tao?" Wuyong asked with a smile. "Yes, today, we've reunited with our little friend Lin after a long time. We should drink and talk at the same time. Only then will we be happy. What do you think?" Someone suggested. Everyone nodded and echoed with a smile. More updates for you. Chapter 3140. Lin Sun and the sages of the ancient Desolation region sat on the ground, drinking and chatting. Before long, Lin Sun told them some of his experiences after leaving the Divine City of Fortune. For example, when did he attain eternal Tao? When did he attack the ninth heaven? And why did he return to the divine ruins of fortune this time? When they learned that the Ji clan of the era of the gods was destroyed by Lin Sun, all the old monsters present were shocked speechless. In terms of combat strength, I'm afraid we're already inferior to our young friend Lin Sun. After a while, Xing Jia sighed with emotion. The others were overwhelmed with emotions. These old men had attained eternal Tao for many years, but their current cultivation was only at the level of the transcendent of rules, far inferior to Lin Sun, whose cultivation kept rising like the tide after the rain. Moreover, even though they were both in the transcendent of rules, Lin Sun already had the ability to kill creation experts and overturn the Ji clan of the God clan. This was far from what these old fellows could compare to. For a moment, everyone sighed incessantly. It was undeniable that Lin Sun was now an overlord on the path of eternal Tao. He was like the sun hanging high in the sky, shining with boundless light. Even in all the heavens, he was a powerful existence that could be admired by billions of people, and even eternal realm experts had to be wary of him. In that case, you're planning to use this opportunity to destroy the High Sun clan and the Jiang clan as well? Wu Yang suddenly asked. His words caused everyone's eyes to focus on Lin Sun. Lin Sun nodded calmly. They're just like the Ji clan, lackeys of the mastermind. If I don't kill them, there will definitely be a lot of trouble in the future. Everyone looked at each other, their emotions tumbling. In the past, among the hundreds of civilizations in the ruins of fortune, who would dare to challenge the three supreme god clans of the era of the gods? How could they not be shocked by Lin Sun's current attitude? It could be said that in the entire ruins of fortune, only Lin Sun had such a foundation and courage. If anyone else were to clamor like this, they would probably be laughed at for overestimating their own strength. But you should know that the ruins of fortune is surrounded by the power of the mastermind. If you're targeted, I'm afraid you'll attract an unpredictable disaster. Wu Yang said. Lin Sun had already thought of this problem, and he said in a low voice, "This is also the reason why I returned to the divine city of fortune. Here, there is the power of the source of fortune and the protection of the river diagram. If a war breaks out, even if there is an unpredictable disaster, there should be a way to resolve it." Only then did everyone understand. Lin Sun was the lord of the divine city of fortune, and he was able to utilize the power of the rules of the city. So if he encountered a dangerous attack like the Deathless Calamity, then he would naturally be able to retreat into the city at the first possible moment to avoid it. If those enemies really dare to come, we old fellows naturally won't sit back and do nothing, the Dragon Elephant Battle Emperor said with a murderous aura. That's right. Although we can't be of much help, it's still not a problem for us to deal with some people of the same cultivation level. The Dark Blood Underworld Emperor, the Myriad Star Divine Tree, and the other old guys spoke one after another. Lin Sun laughed. I'm just worried that, with the Ji clan as an example, they might not dare to come. Everyone laughed, their expressions relaxed. The banquet only came to an end late at night. Lin Sun left and headed towards the Silent Night Ridge. That was originally the residence of the Eternal Night Divine Emperor 13. From a conversation with Wu Yang and the others, Lin Sun learned that not long after he left the divine city of fortune, 13 left alone to wander in the civilized world of other epochs, and had not returned until now. This made Lin Sun feel a little regretful. Originally, he had planned to meet with 13 and talk about the matter of Xie, but now he could only give up. After watching Lin Sun leave, Wu Yang suddenly waved his sleeve and set up a restrictive formation in this area, isolating it from the outside world. What are you doing, Wu Yang? Someone said in a daze. Wu Yang took a deep breath and said, when Lin Sun left just now, he left behind some treasures for me and you old fellows to divide. Treasures? Everyone couldn't help but laugh, not taking it seriously. At our realm, what treasures do we need? Lin Sun is treating us like outsiders, someone muttered. Someone laughed and said, this is also young friend Lin's kind intention. The treasures don't matter, but the intention is important. Wu Yang, you'd better return those treasures. How can we old fellows accept his treasures? If word of this gets out, we'll definitely be laughed at. The dark blood underworld emperor's attitude was very firm. Wu Yang's gaze swept across the crowd and said, "You can make a decision after seeing them." She waved her hand. Whoosh! A brilliant and colorful treasure light emerged. There were all kinds of divine materials, treasures, Tao weapons, elixirs, and all kinds of dazzling lineups. All of a sudden, everyone was stunned, and they couldn't help but show astonishment on their faces. These treasures that were piled up like a small mountain were all eternal level treasures. Every single one of them was extremely rare, and all of them were divine treasures that could play a great role in their cultivation. This, no one could stay calm. Previously, they didn't think much of it. They felt that Lin Sun was treating them like outsiders by giving them gifts. But now, they all realized how important these treasures were. They were not as simple as they had imagined. Even the dark blood underworld emperor, who had been resolute just now, had his eyes glowing at this moment. He breathed rapidly and said, "Mysterious iron of the way. I've been searching for so many years but haven't found it. But Wu Yang saw the reactions of these old monsters and couldn't help but laugh. She was really emotional in her heart. At first, she also refused, but there was no other way. Lin Sun didn't allow her to refuse at all. She didn't care too much at first, but after seeing these treasures, she was shocked for the first time. Only then did she realize how valuable these treasures that Lin Sun had given them were, and he was actually giving these treasures to them. This kind of intention made Wu Yang feel endless emotion, and her heart felt warm. Wu Yang knew that Lin Sun was repaying them. When Lin Sun was young, he had obtained her inheritance in the absolute domain of the ancient desolation domain. He had also obtained the inheritance power of Taixin, divine elephant, Xingjia, and other old fellows. And now, Lin Sun was repaying them in this way. Silent night, ridge. In a hall shrouded in the night. Fan or Subai? Lin Sun called Lin Fan and Subai to his side. I'm going to cultivate in seclusion for some time. You two can travel around the city. Remember, don't go out of the city. Yes. Lin Fan and Subai nodded together. Until they left, Lin Sun sat cross-legged and began to meditate. Currently, he had already surpassed perfection of the realm of justice and was only a step away from the realm of creation. If he had been in the eternal true world, Lin Sun would not have dared to try to reach creation realm. He was worried that once he triggered the great desolation fatal disaster, everything would be over. All his previous efforts would go to waste. After all, he was very clearly aware that the culprit behind the calamity of an era had set his sights on him, and that culprit would definitely seize any opportunity to strike a lethal blow at him. But things were different now. This was the Fortune Divine City. He had the protection of the river diagram treasure, and he was also the master of Fortune City. He controlled the laws of the city, so even if the great silence lifespan tribulation descended, he could still avoid it. For Lin Sun, this was undoubtedly the best time to prove the Tao and creation realm. However, there was one more thing Lin Sun had to do before he reached the creation realm. That was to comprehend the mysteries of this city. Let's begin. Lin Sun took a deep breath, and then various profundities instantly surged into appearance like tide water in his mind. In his days, Lin Sun seemed to have seen the scenes he'd sensed when he comprehended the profundities of the star sky of creation all those years ago. A figure walked through the river of time. He wore green clothes and carried an ancient sword on his back. He seemed to be searching for something. Every single time he passed a civilization of an era, a grand and mysterious formation diagram would float up into appearance behind him, and it fully displayed the cultivation system of that civilization down to the slightest detail. Shockingly, that formation diagram was the infinite divine talisman. This figure was naturally Chun Linkong's ancestor, Chun Shi. His figure seemed as if he was unafraid of the restraints and impacts of time and space, and he was like a god that walked through different eras. After a long time, he appeared in an area that seemed like chaos. After that, a great tribulation descended abruptly. This tribulation was shapeless, colorless, and immaterial. It was born from the void, and it seemed as if the laws of the grand Tao, time, and destiny would be completely wiped out by this tribulation. An indescribable feeling of suffocation assaulted Lin Sun's mental state like a tsunami. He knew that this was the might of the grand silence lifespan tribulation. Chunshi, who wore green clothes, let out a long sigh when facing such a scene. Sure enough, there's a mastermind behind all of this. After that, the scene before him changed. Chunshi had personally established the divine city of creation amidst the chaos, and he'd left the star sky of creation that was a combination of over 100 civilizations within the city. In the end, Chunshi withdrew a completely round black tortoise shell and tossed it lightly. It instantly transformed into an invisible energy of the laws and order that enveloped the sky above the divine city of creation. From that day onward, the grand silence lifespan tribulation that countless eternal realm experts were afraid of had never appeared before the divine city of creation again. After so many years, Lin Sun, who had already reached the eternal realm, had a different state of mind when he sensed this familiar scene again. Only now did he realize that the energy of the laws within the divine city of creation was born from the quintessence energy of the ruins of creation. Simply speaking, it could be called the laws of creation. Only now did he realize that the river diagram was capable of resisting the attacks of the grand silence lifespan tribulation. And it was exactly because of this treasure that the quintessence energy of the ruins of creation had been protected until now. In other words, even though the power of the mastermind behind the scenes had enveloped the surroundings of the ruins of creation, the reason it hadn't truly occupied the quintessence of the ruins of creation was because the river diagram was obstructing it. My rebirth profundities are capable of resisting the laws of creation controlled by the mastermind behind the scenes. But it's very obvious that the river diagram possesses a similar ability. At this moment, Lin Sun sensed the profundities of the laws of creation, and he'd obtained numerous comprehensions. He realized that it was very likely that the reason Chun Lin Kong's grandfather, Chun Shi, was able to travel through the various civilizations and be fearless of the mastermind behind the scenes was because he'd comprehended and grasped the profundities contained within the river diagram. Later in the day, Kavin was on the verge of exploding